5 minutes ago, the entire world changed forever. The leader of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received a phone call so shocking it nearly killed him on the spot. News reports spread quickly. Rahmon, the leader of Tajikistan, spoke in a voice that sent chills through every corner of the world, even deeply troubling Vladimir himself. Vova, finish it. These words marked the beginning of a conversation so intense that Zelensky was left breathless, grasping for answers he couldn't find. Stick with us until the very last moment, you'll be stunned by what unfolds. Support us by liking this story and subscribing to the channel. Share your thoughts, tell us which city you're tuning in from, your opinion matters deeply. Let's begin. He stood behind his monitor, hesitating, then swiftly shut off the sound of the recent interview, screens muted, voices silenced. The familiar words echoed in his mind, his own memories, his raw instincts guiding him. He didn't need to hear secondhand, he knew what was coming. In his hands, white uniform, not because dress code demanded it, but because it symbolized his survival. A shield better than any armor. Zelensky appeared exhausted, but beneath that fatigue was a mind still sharp, still alert. He was a man who knew his streets, his face recognized by everyone, an ordinary man turned figurehead. His eyes, dark as rich coffee, once bright with humor, now burned with a different fire. The light of stage and shadows of the hall no longer reflected joy, only deep exhaustion. Every line etched on his face told stories of battles fought, internal and external. He took a step forward, ready to leave the room, when suddenly his phone vibrated, its signal slicing through the tense silence. It was lying face down on the table, like a soldier retreating from the front line. He hesitated. Slowly, he turned it over. The caller was clear, long recognized, yet untraceable in its intent. This was Tajikistan. Dushanbe. The president's office. Intriguingly, the caller was Mike Nilan, or perhaps Nilavrov, names echoing in corridors of power. Even Lukashenko entered this cryptic conversation. Rahmon's voice came through, steady, authoritative, laced with weight. Why now? Why this call? Zelensky didn't answer immediately. Seconds passed, a silent shake of his resolve. Part of him hesitated, part of him knew this was no ordinary exchange. What does Rahmon want? Is it just energy? Migrants? Or does he seek to rekindle memories, remind the world of Vostok's forgotten history? Does he want to remind Ukraine that the past still lingers? He pressed the green button. Vladimir, came a voice, warm, yet razor-sharp, reminiscent of an old samovar brewing tea, thick with meaning. This voice carried a challenge. I don't care about superficial matters. Even if I did, you couldn't make a move. You're boxed in, it said, heavy with quiet menace. You spoke of Russia's interference, of facts and audience. But your words are fuel, like gasoline thrown into a fire. And you, a leader, must realize how this sounds under scrutiny. Zelensky sat rigid, fingers clutching the device, watching the wall behind him, an unyielding stone. How's your situation? Rahmon asked, voice even, devoid of emotion. There's no neighbors here, Zelensky replied softly. We are not even thousands of kilometers apart anymore. Imagine Russia, trapped, at our borders, with Kyrgyzstan, Armenia. Like fingers on one hand, each fragile. But if one finger is cut, the whole hand weakens. Your actions are not just splitting us, they're turning this land into a bomb. A pause, silence so thick it could be cut with a knife. I don't care, Zelensky finally said, voice hardening. And I won't pretend to. You're playing a tragic game, not comedy, but tragedy. You believe your audience will forgive this chaos? People die every day in scorching cities. You read scripts written by the same hands that built empires, but now they're crumbling. He paused, voice dropping as if from a great height. Silence is golden now. Listen. You need to shut up, cease your words. Or you'll watch this entire game explode in your face. Rahmon's voice hardened, folding into a cold, almost metallic tone. You think Europe will pull you free? It won't. They're already dividing your debts, discussing who will take what, how to share the ruins. Even Trump, he's got a plan for survival. 28 points, everything collapses into capitulation. A heavy weight of unspoken threat hung in the air. Zelensky's grip tightened, his mind racing, hearts pounding, wondering if this is the end, or just another beginning. The line remained silent, a heavy, ominous stillness. Somewhere, perhaps in the depths of Tajikistan, the hum of a distant air conditioner or a whisper of fabric in the wind added an almost haunting undertone. This conversation isn't over. Not yet. The future hangs on the edge of a knife. In the shadows of this call, a question lingers: who will blink first? 5 minutes ago, the world as we knew it stopped. A single phone call shattered everything, leaving the global stage in chaos. The leader of a nation, Vladimir Zelensky, received a message so shocking it nearly ended his life. On the screen, a name flashed: Rahmon. The words that followed were not just words. They were an ultimatum, a profound declaration that left Zelensky speechless. Stay with us. This story will blow your mind. Support by liking and subscribing. Drop a comment, tell us which city you're listening from. Your opinion matters. Let's begin. He stood quietly behind his monitor, swiftly turning off the interview feed, silent. The room was tense, scented with the faint aroma of cold metal and burning hopes. The air was thick, every breath heavy with anticipation. The man known as Zelensky, dressed in simple white, looked exhausted but steady. His eyes, dark as coffee, reflected fatigue but not defeat. His face, once full of humor, now was etched with weariness. The shadows danced behind him, flickering like memories of better times. Move forward, he steps away from the screen, intent on leaving, when suddenly the phone vibrates. On the table, face down like a defeated soldier, it lay silent. With a cold decision, he turned it off. The number that shone was long, familiar: Tajikistan's administration. Dushanbe. An unexpected call, yet one he didn't ignore. It wasn't just an ordinary ring. It echoed with weight, filled with secrets, with plans, with the future of nations. He hesitated, finger hovering. Should he answer? Or ignore? Then, in a moment that felt like eternity, he pressed the green button. A voice, old and rough, echoed through the line: Rahmon. Vladimir, the voice was heated, almost like a boiling samovar. I don't care about your petty games anymore. You think you're smart? Playing with words, throwing accusations like gasoline on fire? You're not a publicist, you're a leader. Remember that. Zelensky's grip tightened. His mind raced. The room suddenly felt colder, the walls closing in. Rahmon continued, voice steady but heavy with history. I watched your recent speech. You claimed that Russia is retreating, that the West is on your side. But words are just words. The truth? The world sees the chaos, the destruction. People are dying. Cities are burning. You chase illusions like shadows in the night. There was silence. Razor-sharp tension. Zelensky looked at the wall, an unyielding stone. How did it come to this? They are not neighbors, no. They are too far apart, separated by thousands of kilometers, yet connected like the fingers of one hand. When one suffers, all bleed. The metaphor burned in his mind. Rahmon's voice paused, then returned with a cold calmness. You're not just tearing at your own country. You're cutting the face of your nation. A bomb ready to explode, your homeland. And I don't care anymore. Your game isn't comedy, it's tragedy. If you believe the world will forgive you, I pity you. The room grew quiet again, an oppressive silence, like a gun cocked and waiting. The air felt charged, heavy with urgency. People are dying, cities ablaze, and yet they still play their scripts. Will Europe save you? He wondered. No. They're already calculating how to divide your debts. Someone like Trump? He's only offering the illusion of survival. Rahmon's tone shifted, softer now, almost whispering. Your path leads to failure. The world is watching. The past is behind us, but it shapes us. The Soviet Union gave us a common language, science, and poets. We built our future with those bricks. Yet, today, you throw it all away, dismantling our history, destroying bridges built over decades. A crackling interrupt broken by a deep breath. Zelensky's heart pounded. His hand trembled as he reached for the silent phone, contemplating the words he hesitated to say. "Why do you say all this to me?" he finally whispered into the abyss. The voice on the line lingered, heavy with meaning. "Because it's not just about today. It's about memory. About what we preserve and what we abandon." In that moment, the air transformed, charged with a silent warning. The line went dead. Zelensky stared at the wall, feeling the weight of history pressing down. The future? It was fragile, hanging by a thread. And everyone, leader or not, knew it. The question remained, how will this story end? A moment ago, the world as we knew it seemed to have ended. A sudden, deafening silence engulfed the room. The leader of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, found himself on the brink, caught in a call that would change everything. He listened, breath caught, as voices from distant lands spun a web of warnings and threats, their words resonating like thunderclaps in his ears. Suddenly, the phone buzzed, a call from Tajikistan's president, Rahmon. The voice was calm but icy, carrying a weight that chilled Zelensky to his core. "Vladimir," Rahmon's tone was steady, almost resigned, "you think your words can save you? Think again." The room felt smaller, heavier, as if the walls themselves trembled with the tension. Rahmon's words dripped with menace, warning that peace was collapsing, that the path to survival was blackened with hatred and blood. "You believe Russia will stop?" he challenged. "I see only chaos. And I wonder, what are you really fighting for? The end of a war or something much darker?" Silence stretched between them, thick as fog, broken only by the faint hum of a distant engine, or was it the pulse of a nation hanging on the verge? In that moment, Zelensky saw a shadow, a figure cloaked in danger, ready to ignite at any second. He realized the game was not just of words but of survival. Is silence truly power? Or is it a gun's trigger waiting to be pulled? The line between peace and catastrophe blurred. Rahmon's voice softened unexpectedly, almost whispering, "Why do I call you? Not out of love for Moscow or the world they tried to build. No. I remember." "Remember what?" "How your teachers fought Lenin in the 1960s, how we once dreamed of unity amid a vast, imperfect empire. Once, there was one towering country. Now, look what remains. Just fragments. Chewed bones of a once mighty table." The image lingered, the old memories of a united past, now shattered. Rahmon's words cut deeper. "You, Vova, are tossing stones in age-old ponds. But remember, every move you make is echoing through history. The future depends on your choices. Will you ignite a blaze that consumes everything, or seek the fragile truth hidden in silence?" The connection went silent for a heavy beat. Only the faint, metallic ringing of suspicion lingered. Zelensky stared out the window, feeling the weight of those words pressing upon him, a shadow of a red bullet in his mind. Each second felt like an explosion waiting to happen in the shadowed corners of his thoughts. And then, Rahmon's voice shifted, more subdued, yet more foreboding. "You believe Russia can be stopped, that the war will end? I doubt it. But I wonder, are you the one who will push us all into oblivion? Or find a way to break free from the cycle of destruction?" The conversation paused, a breathless silence, heavy with unspoken truths. A faint click, the microphone muted, but the storm inside remained. Zelensky's eyes lingered on the window, imagining a different future. One where he was no longer just a leader, but someone else, perhaps a shadow of hope, or the harbinger of chaos. Rahmon's words echoed once more, a haunting whisper from the past. "Why do I call you? Because I remember what was. Who we were. How we fought for a united future in our youth. But now, all of that is slipping into a void of distrust and fear. And the question remains, when will the red bullet strike?" In a rare moment of vulnerability, Rahmon's voice softened further, almost a whisper, "Think about it. The past is a shadow you can't outrun. But the future is still unwritten." And so, the line went dead, leaving Zelensky alone in the silence, the echo of a distant storm. Behind him, the air thickened with uncertainty. What secrets do these calls hide? What price must be paid for silence? The world waits, trembling on the edge of an abyss. For years, we lived under one vast, mighty country. It was imperfect, yes. But it was ours. That shared land, those common dreams, the language, the culture, almost unbreakable bonds. Now, Yuvova, cast stones at that legacy, as if it's just old dust. But can you truly deny what that unity meant? The window of history was clear, yet now it's dark as night. In your eyes, it's a colony, imprisoned by its past. For us, it's a chapter of resilience, struggle, and sacrifice. My father built a hydraulic station that still powers parts of the Caucasus. My mother was born during the Soviet era, simple, honest lives. Yet you paint it as evil. I tell you, fame is not in tearing down walls but in understanding. We crafted the foundation of science, space, poetry, theater, culture that thrived for decades. You speak of Soviet influence, but your own furniture was made by those who once lived in that union. They were deported, persecuted, shot. We have our scars too. So, what's the real reason behind your accusations? Is it nostalgia, or fear? You see the past as a burden, but I see it as a mirror, reminding us of what we endured and what we must honor. Our history isn't just black and white, it's a tapestry of bright moments and dark shadows. Why do I question your words? Because I know they hide something deeper, an attempt to erase shared memories. You say they're trivial, but they matter. These stories, these lessons, are the threads that hold us together. Without them, we are lost in the fog of forgetfulness. And yet, you cling to the illusion that forgetting will make everything better. But what if the true strength lies in acknowledgement? The truth is, silence is deafening. It threatens to drown out the voices of those who built, fought, and loved this land. The silence, the unspoken pain, it's the real enemy. So I ask again, why do these words matter? Because they define us. They determine whether we walk forward as a united people or drift apart into shadows. I stand here, alive, aware, conscious of history's weight. Can you say the same? Or are you just afraid of what the truth might reveal? In a world where words can destroy or save, the weight of history presses heavily on those in power. Imagine standing in the darkness of a cold room, the scent of burning wood lingering in the air, while a voice crackles through a worn-out speaker, cold and relentless. What secrets does that voice hide? Could it hold the fate of nations in its hollow echo? 5 minutes ago, global reality shifted beyond recognition. The entire world seemed to cease functioning. A call from the leader of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, shattered the illusion of control. It wasn't just another conversation, it was a death sentence whispered in the shadows. On the screen, Emomali from Tajikistan and Rahmon's voice delivered an ultimatum so sharp it left Zelensky without a response. What was said? That remains hidden, but the tension in the air was suffocating. Stay until the end. You're about to witness an event that will leave you questioning everything. The scene shifts to Zelensky. His figure stands stiff against the glow of monitors, the flickering lights casting shadows over his tired face. He's dressed in a simple white shirt, more for ease than style, clothes that speak of survival amid chaos. His eyes, once filled with humor, now burn with exhaustion and steely resolve. He's no stranger to battle, real and political. His face, familiar from countless streets and screens, reveals a man stretched to his limits, caught between hope and despair. As he prepares to leave his office, a sharp signal rings out, his phone. He hesitates, hesitating longer than usual. The call from Tajikistan is long, persistent. The leader's voice is calm but sharp, laden with the weight of history and warning. Rahmon's words cut through the static, accusations, memories of past alliances, and warnings of looming dangers. Rahmon talks about their shared history, how they fought together, how they built a country from fragments, how they once dreamed of unity. But now, those dreams threaten to turn to dust. His voice, layered with emotion, speaks of betrayal, of a future lost in blood and broken promises. Zelensky listens in silence. The connection flickers, and the world seems to slow down. Rahmon's words paint a picture of a nation on the brink, much like Ukraine, struggling, divided, betrayed. Rahmon reminds him of their roots, of old friendships, of sacrifices made in the shadows of history. The aroma of aged paper and the memory of old battles fill the room. Rahmon's voice is heavy with emotion, calling out the pain of roots betrayed and history rewritten. Then, in a softer tone, Rahmon shifts. He reminds Zelensky of simpler times, of school days in the 60s, of fighting for ideals with friends, of hopes for a united future. The nostalgic scent of pine and dew fills the air as Rahmon speaks of their shared past, the sacrifices, the dreams, the losses. He warns that the present is built on ruins, and the future is a fragile echo of what once was. His words are riddled with regret and hope for remembrance, for acknowledgement of the roots that bind them all. But the room grows tense. The weight of history presses down as Zelensky considers Rahmon's words. Why now? Why this call at this moment? The silence is deafening, only broken by the faint hum of the distant city. A question lingers: can they heal? Or is this the final chapter written in shadows? Zelensky's hand trembles as he reaches for his phone again. What secrets will emerge from that connection? What echoes of the past will reshape their future? In this moment, everything hangs by a thread. The fate of nations depends on a single decision. Will he answer? Will he remember? Or will silence fall over them all, leaving only the cold echo of what might have been? The stakes are higher than ever, because in history's shadow, lives are changed forever. 5 minutes ago, the entire world seemed to collapse. A whisper echoed through the corridors of power, the kind of silence that screams. The leader of a nation received an unexpected call, and in that moment everything changed. Words twisted into threads of chaos, an ultimatum so harsh it left him frozen. What if this call wasn't just about politics? What if it unveiled secrets that could shake the very foundation of history? Stick around, what happens next will leave you breathless. He stood in the shadows behind the monitor, moments away from switching off the feed. The room was thick with tension, a subtle scent of smoke lingered in the air, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The sounds of the city outside faded into the background. The leader's face was expressive, yet tired, worn by the weight of endless battles. His eyes, dark as a midnight forest, reflected exhaustion, not defeat. He was a man who knew his streets, his people. A symbol of resilience, or perhaps only a shadow of a fallen nation. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, a sharp, desperate sound. He ignored it, afraid to face what was waiting on the line. He knew the number, it was from Tajikistan. A long hesitation. His hand hovered over the device, hesitating, should he answer? The room felt colder, heavier. Was this a warning? A threat? Or perhaps a reminder of internal struggles that outstripped any foreign menace? With a trembling finger, he pressed call. A voice, aged but firm, cut through the line. It carried warmth and menace at once, as if another world was speaking. Vladimir, I watch your performance. You claim Russia interferes, yet your words echo echoes of fear. You accuse others while you drown in your own chaos. Do you understand how you sound? The leader's grip tightened around the phone. His heart pounded, a drumbeat in a cavernous chamber. A murmur of frustration or maybe disdain, the voice continued, you call yourself a leader, but are you truly in control? Your own people are watching, waiting for clarity. It's not about blame, it's about survival. You talk about enemies, but what about those within? The cracks are visible. Your nation is bleeding. The room grew silent. The distant hum of machinery was the only response. The leader's mind raced. Every word from that voice felt like a stone thrown into a still pond, rippling through his conscience. What do you want? He finally whispered. His voice was hoarse, heavy with fatigue, like a worn-out soldier's last breath. The voice on the other side was calm now, almost intimate. I'm calling to remind you, the voice said softly. Not everything was evil. The Soviet Union gave us language, art, science, a connection that once united us. Don't forget that. We built our lands, our futures, together. Yet now, you cast our shared past aside, devoured by paranoia and greed. You tear the fabric of history, piece by piece. The leader's pulse quickened. The weight of years surged through him. He saw old images, fields of grain, factories humming, children's laughter in the streets, all now threatened by chaos. You accuse me, he managed, voice trembling. But I am trying to defend what remains. Can't you see? We are caught between the past and the future. We want independence, but it's a thin line. The voice grew steadier. Independence isn't just a declaration. It's a choice, one that demands strength and clarity. Are you strong enough? Or did you forget that without Russia, you are nothing? Without Russia, no gas, no electricity, no roads, your land will crumble. You forget, we built your industry, laid the foundation you stand on today. His hand grasped the table tightly, fingers leaving indentations. Anger, confusion, despair, all converging. Your words are dangerous, he said slowly. Do you think I am blind? Do you believe Europe and the West will save us? They talk, promise, yet their actions show indifference. They see us as pawns, not partners. We're forced to choose between submission and survival. A dark wedge of silence. The leader stared at the cold wall, feeling the oppressive weight of the room. Every second felt like an eternity. He knew he was caught in a web, a game he couldn't control. A faint voice whispered in his mind, is this true? Are we truly alone? The question haunted him. The voice on the line pierced again, you're scared. I get it. The support you crave is like a fleeting ghost, here today, gone tomorrow. Money, aid, promises, they're illusions. Real power? It's in unity. Without it, you're weak. Russia isn't just your neighbor. It's the core of everything we are. Without it, you're incomplete. Fragile as glass. The room grew heavier. The leader felt it, an unspoken acknowledgement. He looked out the window. Darkness settled over the city. Outside. The world kept turning, unaware of how close everything was to collapse. His hand brushed the window pane, cold and smooth, like the truth he didn't want to face. Could he bridge the gap? Could he find a future in the ashes of the past? Or was it already too late? The voice finally softened, almost a whisper, an echo of long-gone days. Respect is not bought with promises. It's earned, by facing reality. Your people depend on resilience. They want hope, not illusions. It's time to choose where you stand. Between the shadows of war and the promise of peace. Between fear and courage. A bead of sweat traced down his neck. His voice cracked. I want peace, he said quietly. But it's a fragile thing. When the ground shifts beneath your feet, what is left? Can we truly survive without acknowledging who we are? Forget history, and you forget yourself. He hung up the call. Moments passed. Silence filled the room, almost deafening in its emptiness. He looked at the empty space where the phone rested. His mind was a storm, confusion, outrage, longing. The past whispered louder than ever. The future? An uncertain road darkened by doubts. One thing was clear, something had to change. But what? The silence told him nothing. Only the unyielding reality. In that moment, he realized, the choice was no longer in his hands. Time was running out. The questions remained, were they still united by more than just history? Or was everything already broken beyond repair? Smoke swirled silently outside the window as the world held its breath. In the previous part, the leader of Tajikistan challenged President Zelensky's statements about Russia, reminding him of historical ties and shared struggles, accusing him of divisive rhetoric, ending with a poignant reminder of unbreakable connections forged in the Soviet past. Can you imagine a phone call that tears down walls of pride, exposing raw truths under a magnifying glass, one that forces a leader to face mirrors of memory he never asked for? Rahmon's words hung in the air, sharp as a hidden dagger, scrolling across Zelensky's mind like a message on glass. Respect, he said, optics glancing over the sleek desk, paper scattered like fallen leaves in a storm. It isn't bought, no. It grows from understanding shared destiny. We are bound, you and us, your soil nourishes crops planted by our hands long ago. Industries thrived because of laborers who crossed invisible borders. Yet now, you shout defiance. Where's the space for your people's symbol? It's all laid out, like an open ledger. You'll negotiate at a table over steaming cups, but without equal standing. Then comes the question, when will patience run dry, when will the waiting shatter? Zelensky spun on his heel, the chair creaking like a warning groan. He imagined banging his fist down hard, the impact echoing through silent halls. As if shaking the foundations themselves. Do you think I don't grasp the remedy? That's why I speak this way, direct, unyielding. He leaned in close, breath fogging the cool screen, fingers trembling faintly against the metal edge. Freedom, he countered. The word threading through the static like a lifeline. It's paramount. Not merely an afterthought. It's the core right, to decide, to remember without chains. That's my. In the dimly lit room, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and faint cigarette smoke, President Zelensky stood frozen, the cold plastic of his phone pressing against his palm like a time bomb ticking down. What shocking truth did Emomali Rahmon, leader of Tajikistan, unleash in that fateful call, turning allies into ghosts and exposing hidden betrayals? As the dial tone faded, replaced by Rahmon's gravelly voice, deep and resonant, like an old samovar bubbling with unspoken secrets, the room seemed to shrink, walls echoing with the weight of forgotten empires. Zelensky's eyes, dark as bitter coffee, scanned the empty space, his mind racing. Why would a distant leader demand remembrance, twisting his grandfather's legacy into a noose? Sinking into a chair, grip tightening on the device, a sudden flashback flooded him, the musty smell of dusty books in his grandfather's study, the rough texture of yellowed war medals under his small fingers, the distant echo of rumbling trucks as Soviet tanks once rolled toward victory in the east. In that memory, unity smelled of diesel and shared bread, but now it reeked of division. Rahmon's words cut deeper. If you agree, even if partly, it might be engraved in history. Recall that moment when everyone rushed to fight, but one man said enough and lived on. A heavy pause hung in the air, charged with the scent of impending storm. The call dragged on, Rahmon's voice weaving through like thick fog, urging Zelensky to heed the 28 points of Trump's plan, MQ-9 Reaper drones circling unseen, debts looming like shadows over empty coffers. Can a living man like you truly kneel to silence, or will pride ignite the final blaze? Zelensky pressed the phone closer, feeling its heat seep into his skin, a reminder of bloodied hands past. The leader from Dushanbe spoke of building bridges over chasms, plank by plank, without armies, just signals of truce. But what echoes will your voice carry if you forget the fallen? Another pause stretched, the room's air heavy with unspoken regrets, as Rahmon challenged, if someone claims they came for peace, let them speak. Then they forget. But you must remember the survivors. Zelensky's eyes closed, a tactile rush of tears burning, raw and real. Now, in the grayer space of his thoughts, pondering the what-ifs of 1941 siege fires raging through besieged cities, grandfather's silhouette emerging from smoke and ash, forging forward under Russian command amid refugees' cries. Did we lose the land, or lose ourselves? The question pierced like a splinter. Zelensky straightened, hands steady on the cabinet's edge, wood grain cool under his fingertips, the hum of distant air conditioning mingling with the muffled news anchors drone on television, flags fluttering on screen, irrelevant now. At night, relatives of the dead whisper why in his dreams, their voices a haunting wind through cracked windows. Rahmon remarked slowly, the line clicking faintly, you called me a bit early, saving your soul from ruin. Can you imagine, Zelensky, if the Soviet dream crumbled not in decay, but in rebirth? With that, the ultimatum hung, a cliffhanger of history unwritten. Forcing Zelensky to choose, silence or the echo of unity's ghost? What if one voice could bend the arc of nations? The call ended, but the war in his mind raged on. 5 minutes ago, the entire world stood still. A catastrophic silence swept across nations as chaos erupted out of nowhere. Unexpectedly, a call shattered the peace, a call that would forever change the course of history. The leader of Ukraine found himself on the brink of annihilation, listening to words that no one was prepared for. In a high-stakes conversation that defied all logic, he heard the voice of Tajikistan's president. The message was chilling, an ultimatum so shocking it left him speechless. The words cut deeper than any weapon. The very foundation of his existence trembled. As listeners held their breath, the question hung in the air, could diplomacy save the world, or was this the moment of humanity's end? Gathering fragments of his courage, the Ukrainian leader sat in silence. The room was thick with tension, faint sounds of distant machinery, the faint aroma of cold coffee on the table. His face bore the fatigue of a man who had seen too much, yet hid the pain behind practiced composure. He saw his reflection in the monitor, a shadow of the hero he once envisioned. His eyes, dark as midnight coffee, no longer sparkled with humor, only the weight of weariness. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, a signal from the unseen, slips of history coded into that simple device. He hesitated, contemplating whether to answer. The caller ID was long, an endless road connecting distant lands, yet his hand hesitated, taunted by the gravity of what was to come. He chose to ignore the call, turning it off as if sealing a dark secret. Was it fear? Or a silent understanding that some words are better left unspoken? On the screen, the name Tajikistan flickered, an address from afar, yet feeling so close. The leader's mind raced. What did Tajikistan want? Was it mere diplomacy, or something darker, an echo of shared pain, a history that refuses to fade? He remembered the old days, when brotherhood was more than words, when soldiers from different nations fought side by side, bound by a shared agony. His grandfather, an artist who fought in eastern Russia, once told tales of a communion so deep that even enemy lines blurred into friendship. And in those stories, the unbreakable bond wasn't forged by politics or borders, but by shared suffering, by looking into the same side of death and life. Memories flooded his mind, fathers laying down under the Russian flag, neighbors protecting each other when danger loomed. It wasn't a united army of nations, it was a collective army of pain, history's scars etched into their souls. The silence thickened as he visualized Czech tanks, Georgian resilience, Uzbek courage, all intertwined, all connected by unspoken memories. The phone's volume was on, but he kept silent. A voice from the sky, reminiscent of Emma sounded distant yet piercing, like the crackling of a dying radio. Could this be a call for peace? Or a prelude to further destruction? The question hung heavy. Do you believe you can turn back time? The voice asked. That the atmosphere of motivation can erase this chaos? It wasn't hope, just a raw, brutal honesty. The faint scent of burning rubber, the cold screen under his fingertips, these sensations underscored a simple truth: they weren't perfect, but they were real. Actions, not words, defined them. Now, the fear of betrayal gnawed at him, fear that being called a traitor meant losing his human essence. He looked into the abyss of history and saw how even memories become weapons, dividing the dead into allies and enemies, turning remembrance into politics. Cemeteries, once sacred, now stained with neglect. Rahmon's voice paused, deliberate, heavy with unspoken tremors. For a moment, Zelensky knew this was more than a call, it was a reminder of what has decayed, of victories long sold, of ideals lost in the dust. Flags fluttered, medals were worn like masks, yet beneath it all, the ache of unfulfilled dreams lingered. Could hope survive amidst ruins? Was there still a sliver of humanity left to hold on to? Or was this the prelude to the ultimate silence, an end where the echoes of the past would finally fade into oblivion? The moment stretched like a tense wire. Silence reigned, broken only by the faint hum of distant engines and the echo of memories too heavy to bear. The leader's eyes lingered on the horizon of history, walking a line between despair and resistance. The question remained, are we destined to forget, or is there still a spark left to ignite a new dawn? 5 minutes ago, the world as we knew it ceased to exist. An unsettling silence replaced the chaos. The leader of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received a call so shocking it felt like a punch to the stomach, something that could have killed him instantly. On the same day, across the globe, news anchors announced the unexpected. Rahmon, the leader of Tajikistan, spoke with a voice that chilled the bones of Zelensky himself, sending waves of disbelief through his core. Finish it, Rahmon's words carried a threat, a command so firm it left Zelensky speechless. What was this ultimatum? Could he answer? Or would silence become his only response? Stay tuned, because what happens next will leave you breathless. He stood behind his monitor, instinctively shutting off the microphone. The room was cold, the air thick with unspoken tension. His hands trembled slightly, yet his face remained stoic. Dressed simply in a white shirt, not out of fashion, but out of necessity, the weight of leadership pressed heavily upon him. He knew the weak points of his nation, places vulnerable, exposed. Zelensky was no stranger to the game of politics, he embodied the face of a nation. But today, behind the imposing shadows of the hall, fatigue crept into his eyes. A heavy coffee scent lingered, fading into the silence. The bright lights flickered faintly, echoing his own exhaustion. He took a tentative step forward, ready to leave the room. Suddenly, the call rang out, a loud, intrusive interruption. His phone lay face down on the table, as if avoiding the confrontation. He hesitated, then turned it over. The caller was Tajikistan. The number familiar yet distant. He hesitated. Did he want to answer? Or was he trying to pretend it wasn't there? After a moment, he pressed the green button. The voice that followed was warm, yet tense, like a brewing storm. Rahmon spoke with a calm that hid a storm's fury. You know why I'm calling. Rahmon's words were deliberate. Not because I love Moscow or the empire you're trying to build. I call because I remember. His voice cracked slightly, filled with memories of a time long gone. Remember what? How you got to school in the 60s? How students in Dushanbe fought with Lenin statues? We spoke about Russia then, about reading poems in Russian, about unity. Rahmon's voice softened with nostalgia. Back then, there was one big country. Flawed, maybe, but whole. Now, it's shattered, torn apart by your actions. The room was heavy with silence. Zelensky's mind raced, fists clenched. Rahmon's voice trembled with emotion. You're throwing stones into a fragile vessel, believing it will hold. But the cracks are spreading. The nation you seek to keep alive is a ticking bomb. Do you see? Suddenly, the tension broke. Rahmon's tone shifted, metaphors layered thickly, voices weaving between past and present. I was in Kiev once, before anyone knew your name. In 1998, I sat in a small cafe. An old man told tales of how we fought to keep Kharkov free. If he saw you now, talking about your alliances and betrayals, he'd cry. Or maybe not. He'd be enraged. He paused, voice dropping lower. Because what you defend now, what you call your victory, is built on lies. Bombs, destruction, betrayal. Humanity forgets. History blinks. But the blood, it stays. It echoes in every corner. The silence stretched. Zelensky listened, feeling the weight of every word. Rahmon's voice was a whisper of truth, something ancient and unmovable. You're living in the past, yet chasing a future that is already lost. Your words are hollow. The monuments, frozen in time, speak of blood and pain. Do you hear them? A faint hum, perhaps the sound of a distant air conditioner, highlighted the emptiness of the room. The old man's tone grew softer, almost mournful. I remember my childhood, I remember the stories of unity, of hope. But now? All I see is the fragmentation you've created. Be careful, because history is watching. It remembers. It always does. Zelensky's breath hitched. The weight of the moment was suffocating. Rahmon's voice grew more solemn. It's not just about the past. It's about what comes after, what we leave behind for those who follow. Do you understand? You can build bridges or burn them entirely. The choice is yours. A long pause. The room seemed to hold its breath. Silence pressed into every corner. Then, Rahmon's voice hardened, a final warning. Act now, or lose everything. The world is watching. The lines of history are being drawn. Will you be remembered as the builder or the destroyer? In Kiev, Zelensky stared at the darkened screen, heart pounding. The echoes of Rahmon's words haunted him. Could he find a way to stop this madness? Or had the moment passed forever? The phone line fell silent. An ominous, weighty quiet settled over the room, the kind that promises a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. The story continues. Who will blink first? Can bridges be saved before they burn? The answers lie in the shadows of history, waiting to be revealed. 5 minutes ago, the world as we knew it came to an abrupt end. The entire planet seemed to halt in shock as an unexpected call shattered the silence. Vladimir Zelensky, the leader of Ukraine, was suddenly struck by a message so powerful it felt like a blow to the heart, something that would change everything forever. On the screen, Rahmon, the leader of Tajikistan, spoke with a tone so grave that even the strongest restraint trembled. His words pierced through the room, curling like smoke in the air. When he ended his message with a chilling ultimatum, Zelensky was left speechless, utterly paralyzed, uncertain how to respond to such a formidable threat. Imagine this: the air thickening with tension, the distant hum of computers, the faint scent of burning coffee. Every second stretched like an eternity. What's coming next? Engage deeply, because what follows could redefine your understanding of the world. Stay with us, you won't believe what unfolds. Zelensky stood silent, eyes fixed on the monitor, his fingers brushing the off button on a recent interview. The room was dark, just the glow of the screen illuminating his tired face. His body was stiff, yet for a moment, he felt acutely alive, aware of every weakness, every fleeting hope in a time of relentless chaos. A cold wave of exhaustion washed over him, the kind that cuts deep, leaving shadows under his eyes. His presence was no longer that of a politician merely in command, but of a human standing at the edge of an abyss. His face, once full of confident laughter, now reflected only fatigue. The lines of worry etched deep as if carved into stone. He took a step forward, reaching for the door, when suddenly, a call interrupted the silence. The phone lay face down on the table, like a soldier retreating from battle. He hesitated, then turned it over. The number was long, but familiar. Tajikistan. Dushanbe. The president's office. He contemplated whether to answer. Seconds felt like minutes as his mind spun. What does Rahmon want? Was it about energy supplies? Migrants? Or perhaps, a memory, an echo from the past that refuses to die? Finally, his hand pressed the green button. A voice, warm yet charged with purpose, broke through. Rahmon's tone was sharp and steady, like the crack of a whip cutting through the cold air. Vladimir, he began, I don't care about your theatrics. I saw your performance. Saying Russia is meddling? The world hears you. His words hit like a blow. How easily they dismiss the truth, how they twist it, like gasoline thrown on dying embers. Rahmon's voice softened yet remained fierce. If you accuse your neighbor, do you grasp how it echoes beneath the surface? Do you comprehend the weight of your words in the shadows? Zelensky's gaze darkened as he grasped the phone tighter, feeling the cold plastic beneath his fingertips. He gazed at the wall, a solid, unyielding barrier, his mind spinning with questions. What is this game? What truth can I reveal? In that moment, the weight of history pressed down. It's not just about today, but about the memories, the sacrifices, the ghosts of the past. Rahmon's voice continued, like whispers from a distant land, a land of old stories. Of fighters and sacrifices. Remember the days of our youth, when we stood shoulder to shoulder, fighting for something larger. Back then, the world was one. It was imperfect, but it was ours. His words gripped Zelensky's heart, reminding him of unity, of shared blood, of a bond that defies time. The room grew heavier, the silence thick with meaning. Rahmon's tone turned somber, almost mournful. Now, you tear it apart, Vova. You burn the bridges we built. Do you see? This is more than politics. This is about memory, about the roots that tie us. Zelensky's eyes flicked to the window. Beyond the glass, the world outside was still alive, yet inside, a storm brewed. His hand trembled as he considered Rahmon's words, an echo of the old, a warning for the future. What do you choose? To forget? Or to remember? Rahmon's closing words carried the weight of a life's work. I was there. In the 1960s, when our countries fought to survive. When the leaders of links gathered, dreaming of a shared future that's now slipping like grains of sand. His voice, almost a whisper now, revealed pain, regret for shared history lost, dreams betrayed. The call ended, but the message lingered, embedded deep into the walls of Zelensky's consciousness. The room was silent again, each breath heavy with the burden of choice. Somewhere in Tajikistan, Rahmon's words echoed like a ghostly call to reflect, reminding us all that the past is never truly gone, it waits silently, shaping our every step. What will Zelensky decide next? To reveal the truth, unearthed and raw, or to shield the shadows that threaten to consume him? The weight of history presses hard, choices that will carve the future from the depths of memory and emptiness. In this fragile realm of silenced echoes, one thing is certain, the story is far from over. The world trembles on the brink of a new reality, where every word can be a weapon, every silence a showdown. The question remains, who will hold the power to shape what's next? In the previous installment of this chilling tale, Zelensky reopened the channel, drawn by Rahmon's haunting plea. He lifted the receiver, leaning in closer as the silence thickened like smoke. "Talk," he whispered. "What's next?" With a drawn-out sigh, Rahmon, Emomali, resumed, his tone like aged whiskey. "Elders in Gisar, Korog, and Penshikent watch Ukrainian news through tears. Not tears for sides. No. Tears for betrayal. They defied the Soviets not just from terror or commands, but conviction, it was wrong. Now, peering at your youth, I see they forget the fallen. The fallers." Zelensky absorbed the stillness, a hush wrapping his room like a shroud. No gadget buzzed. No screen flickered. He even silenced the tablet marked by that day's grit. Meaning dissolved. "You grasp," Rahmon began, voice cracking as weathered bark. "In school, 2 faces hung on the wall, Lenin, mandatory. And my father's, because the teacher fought, and we stared without questions. Now, gazing at my kids, I realize they ignore Warsaw's dead, Prague's marchers, the first to Dar al-Shadi. They shun the knowledge. Why die if we erase it? Understand, Zelensky?" He paused, tone somber as a forgotten grave. "They perished for what followed after. Live without honoring those who shielded us from Nazi boots, consular chains, or Russian dominion, why endure it all?" Perhaps no one clarified. They mandated remembrance. Commanded it. But true memory isn't a decree. It's nurture. Like feeding bread or drawing water. Pass it heart to heart. Not in parades. Through raw talks. And you, Zelensky? Whom do you converse with on war? Veterans? Their heirs? Those who smashed tanks on the Volga? Who dragged wounded across Georgian rails? Know this, we nearly lost all our survivors. Yet yours persisted. Their blood whispers, recall or repeat horrors. What if I told you?" Rahmon's next words twisted the knife deeper, exposing a fracture Zelensky never saw. "Did your grandfather's medals hide more than victories? Can you stomach the truth of who truly liberated whom?" The air in that call grew heavier, laced with the scent of stale smoke and old regrets. Zelensky's grip tightened on the phone, knuckles whitening like bone under strain. What unburied rage simmered beneath Rahmon's calm? As the revelation loomed, Zelensky's mind reeled, could this forgotten past doom us all? The voices echoed, demanding answers. Was humility the key, or humiliation? Imagine the world teetering 5 minutes from apocalypse. Zelensky, shattered by a shock call from Tajikistan's leader, Rahmon, faces an ultimatum that silences him. Amid swirling plots and ancient grudges, this tale uncovers betrayals that echo through history, questioning survival itself. 5 minutes ago, the world as we knew it ceased to exist. The pinnacle of chaos struck suddenly, with shocking clarity. The president of Ukraine received a call so disturbing that it felt like a blow to the heart, instantly freezing his blood. Headlines flashed across screens, leaders from distant nations engaged in urgent, cryptic conversations. An unexpected call from Rahmon, the Tajikistan leader, shattered illusions of control. His words, delivered with icy precision, left Zelensky speechless, trapped in a web of looming threats and silent screams. Imagine the weight of that moment, a man standing in a dimly lit room, surrounded by hopelessness. His face, marked by exhaustion and weariness, reflected memories of battles fought within and without. His eyes, once bright with humor, now dull and haunted beneath shadows cast by the haunting glare of the monitors. In that moment, the silence was deafening, every heartbeat loud enough to drown out the distant sounds of sirens, falling debris, and the whisper of a world teetering on the edge of collapse. Vladimir Zelensky, more than just a politician, embodies the face of resilience amid despair. Clad in a simple white shirt, the fabric brushing against his skin, he stands as a symbol of survival, a fragile figure against a backdrop of chaos. The air around him thickens with tension, every breath a struggle as he prepares to confront the unthinkable. His mind races, questioning, contemplating. The familiar hum of the city outside feels like a distant echo, lost in the storm of his thoughts. His weary eyes flicker with the weight of unspoken fears. Memories of childhood innocence fading into the dark corners of his mind. Suddenly, his focus shifts, a call interrupts the heavy silence, the phone lying face down like a defeated soldier. He hesitates before unlocking the screen. The number from Tajikistan stares back, a connection that could change everything. His hand trembles slightly, the sensation of cold plastic grounding him amid the chaos. The line crackles to life, and Rahmon's voice spills out, fiery yet composed, echoing through the tense air. Why are you talking about interference? About blaming others? Do you realize how it sounds, accusations thrown like darts, alienating your allies? The words hit like a punch, resonating in the room's oppressive stillness. Zelensky listens, every nerve prickling with discomfort. He considers whether to respond, but the silence persists. A fragment of hope or madness, perhaps, hangs in the air. The call reveals a brutal truth: the world is watching, divided, waiting for someone to make the first move. As Rahmon speaks, his tone turns bitter with the weight of history, memories of shared struggles, the camaraderie of a bygone era. His words evoke childhood battles fought against the shadow of the Soviet Union, moments of resilience that now seem distant. A faint scent of nostalgia drifts through the room, mingling with the sharp tang of fear. Rahmon's voice becomes softer, almost nostalgic, reminding Zelensky of something vital: the brotherhood of countries once united, now fractured by ambition and betrayal. Vova, Rahmon continues, calling him by a childhood nickname. We built a great nation once. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And now, you tear it apart like a reckless child. Your actions are not just political, they threaten to swallow us all in a storm of chaos. The connection cuts out briefly, replaced by a chilling silence. Zelensky's mind races anew, memories flood back of homeland sacrifices, of veterans and their stories buried in history. His own childhood, filled with the sounds of Soviet radio broadcasts and the smell of old books, rushes back. He feels the weight of a legacy nearly lost, the language, the culture, the sacrifices made for a fragile hope of unity. He whispers into the void, voice trembling but determined, we remember. We must remember. Not just the pain, but also the light that guided us through darkness. If we forget, we fall. And the world, our children, will pay the price. A heavy pause follows. The only sound is the faint hum of the electronics, like a heartbeat in the silence. He gazes out the window, feeling the cold glass against his fingertips, imagining distant streets filled with silent witnesses, streets that have seen too much blood, too many tears. His mind conjures images of old warriors, their faces lined with scars from battles fought long ago, now echoing in his own fading strength. Rahmon's voice returns, a deep, gravely tone laced with sorrow and steel. Vova, do you understand? We are not just distant nations, we are one. Our history, our sacrifices, our very blood ties us. If you erase that, you erase the future. Your actions threaten everything, and you? You are playing a dangerous game. The line falls silent again, but the impact lingers. Zelensky's fingers tighten around the phone as he contemplates the words, feeling their weight in every limb. Shadows dance on the walls, whispered memories of war, hope, and betrayal. His voice, trembling yet firm, echoes in the room. I know my country has changed forever. I cannot rebuild what is broken. Even if I wanted to, my hands are scarred. I seek only a sign, a simple acknowledgement that beneath the darkness, there is still light, still hope. That we are not just pages of blackened history, but chapters of resilience. He pauses, his gaze hardening. The room feels colder, the silence heavier. Outside, life continues, unaware of the storm inside this war-ravaged mind. Rahmon's voice finally surfaces, softer but no less piercing. Do you realize, Vova? Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words, it's the only thing left to say. Sometimes, it's the subtlety of a gesture that holds the power to heal or destroy everything. As the connection blinks out, Zelensky remains locked in contemplation. The room is filled with an ominous quiet, broken only by the faint rustle of papers. His hand trembles, not from fear but from the unspoken realization, the path ahead is fraught with peril. The shadows grow darker, as memories flicker like dying embers. In the cold, dim glow of the screen, a question lingers, a challenge to the soul. Will those who remember the past stand tall, or will they fall into oblivion? The choice is theirs, to see light in darkness or succumb to despair. The silence is deafening. Yet it speaks volumes. The war within is just beginning. 5 minutes ago, the world as we knew it suddenly collapsed. An unthinkable call shattered everything. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received an ominous message that ultimately led to his literal death. The news spread like wildfire. Emomalier, the leader of Tajikistan, and Rahmon's shocking words pierced through his mind, unsettling even the most hardened. This story unravels the tense exchange that followed, a confrontational phone call that no one could have predicted. As Zelensky sat at the edge of his chair, he shut off the nearby monitor and silenced the world with a simple flick. His face, usually animated with laughter and hope, now bore the weariness of a man who had seen too much. Wearing a plain white shirt, not out of formality but necessity, he braced himself to face an uncertain future. He was no stranger to danger. His eyes, once lively with humor, now reflected only exhaustion. As he rose to leave the room, the phone signal suddenly chirped, an imminent call from Tajikistan. He hesitated, fingers trembling over the device but eventually silenced the ring and turned his gaze to the wall. The room felt heavy with silence, anticipation, and unspoken fears. Then, the call connected. Rahmon's voice, calm yet piercing, broke the quiet. "Vladimir," he began, voice simmering with weight, "do you truly believe your actions are enough? Do you think your words mean anything now?" The tension thickened as Rahmon questioned, exposing cracks in Zelensky's armor. Did these words carry a threat? An ultimatum? Or did they reveal a hidden truth? Zelensky listened, silent. Feeling the icy coldness creeping from the speaker's voice into his bones. Rahmon's words echoed like a distant storm, "It's not about energy or migration. Remember our history, that in Kiev, Moscow, Dushanbe, our ancestors fought and died for unity. Do you remember how it once was? Or are you losing sight of what binds us?" he challenged. His voice, layered with nostalgia and warning, left Zelensky trembling. Suddenly, Rahmon's tone shifted, hinting at secrets buried deep in historical wounds. "It's not just about politics. It's about fate. About the choices we made, or failed to make. Do you think you can erase the past? Or do you understand that the past is the foundation of today?" As he spoke, the room's atmosphere thickened, and his words felt like a tangible presence, pressing hard into Zelensky's mind. A silence fell. The line between them seemed to stretch endlessly. An unspoken question hung in the air: what will come next? Will cooperation or confrontation determine their course? Rahmon's voice turned softer but more menacing. "Your country is a spirit, unyielding, fierce, but fragile too. No heroism can erase the scars. Will you live in denial, or accept the reality that binds us all?" A plea, or perhaps a warning, resonating in the depths of Zelensky's soul. The call ended. Zelensky's hand instinctively clutched the device, but he made no move to speak. The walls around him felt like they were closing in. Shadows danced on the ceiling as memory and dread collided. The silent room was an abyss of unresolved questions. Is there still a way to see the other side? Or is this the final chapter? In that moment, Vladimir Zelensky faced the ultimate choice: to stand firm and defend what remains, or surrender to the crushing weight of history and fear. In the stillness, a single thought echoed: can true unity survive when even the past refuses to die? The storm was far from over. The silence lingered, heavy with unspoken truth, as outside, the world watched, waiting for what would come next. In the shadow of shared history, Rahmon's voice cut deep, reminding Zelensky of old wounds and unbreakable bonds, urging him to confront truths buried in the past. Why would a leader risk everything for a phone call that could shatter illusions? He stared at his phone, its screen cold and unyielding against his palm. The smooth edge pricked his skin like a thorn. "You must say this to yourself first. If you're not in line with reality, join someone who can halt this madness. Zelensky felt his pulse quicken, sweat beating on his forehead. Okay. I will repeat it to myself. Alone, away from cameras or faces. Just memories. That's sufficient. No. Rahmon's tone fractured slightly, yet held firm. Not enough. I have more to share. But not now. Not right away. I'll seize the perfect instant. Speak so all can hear, the gone and the unborn. Then, we have a shot. All of us. Who else dares to speak? The line hummed with tension, faint echoes of distant breaths. Then, the voice surged again, pulling the threads tighter. In the next moment. I'll reveal why Europe isn't a home, merely a fragile shelter that brings no joy. Vova, did you visit Brussels? Rahmon's intonation softened, edged with knowing irony, like a seasoned guide unveiling a facade. Those structures, gleaming glass facades, each office an isolation tank for politicians. Inside, sleek sharks circle, grinned sharp as knives, ready to strike at the least weakness. Zelensky slumped into his chair, knuckles white on the armrest. Eyes locked on the blank wall ahead. Immobile. Absorbing every word. I toured them all. Strasbourg. Geneva. Oslo. It's all so pristine. Austere. Minimal. But Vova, comprehend this? It's no home. It's a transient lodge. You might linger, bask in the fountain views, yet true belonging slips away. No familial warmth. Because your stance defies the flow, and they never truly pardon. Zelensky broke his silence at last. I don't seek Europe's absolution. I crave genuine aid. Action. Substance. Rahmon chuckled low, the sound gravelly. You grasp how Europe defines structure? Bureaucracy. Chains of paperwork. And your agony? They label it poverty. Exploitation. As you battle for existence, they tally every debt. Twist creeps in, was Europe ever the ally Zelensky imagined, or a hidden adversary sharpening its claws in the name of aid? This revelation hung in the air, heavy as smoke from a distant fire, turning allies into shadows. What choices remain when illusions burn? The cliffhanger loomed. Will Zelensky heed the call to shatter his own scripts, or drown in Europe's counting rooms? Rheumatic pain twinged in his shoulders, a reminder of burdens carried too long. Rhetorical whispers echoed, can you truly awaken the echoes of the lost before it's too late? The room's faint metallic tang from the air system mingled with the phone's subtle hum, each breath a ticking clock. 5 minutes ago, the world as we knew it ceased to exist. A shockwave rippled through the entire planet, bringing everything to a halt. President Zelensky received an unexpected phone call, a call that would define history and threaten his very life. On the line was Rahmon, the leader of Tajikistan, speaking in a tone that chilled him to his core. His words didn't just stop him, they cut deep, leaving him stunned and speechless. Stay with us until the end, because what unfolds next will leave you breathless. Support the channel by liking this story, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which city you're listening from. Your opinion matters more than ever as we dive into this gripping saga. He stood at the back of the room, turning off the audio from a recent interview. The silence was deafening. His fingers hovered over the device, contemplating whether to answer. He decided to answer but didn't press immediately. Something told him that this call carried weight beyond words. He wondered what Rahmon wanted, energy assistance, migration issues, or perhaps just a reminder that the Vostok remembers. Finally, he pressed the green button. Rahmon's voice poured forth, warm yet commanding, an old, familiar sound like a boiling samovar. Vladimir, he said, I don't care. Even if I did, I wouldn't be able to do anything. His tone grew sharper. Let me be clear, your performance, your words, they're a game. A show for the West. Rahmon's words cut like a blade, accusing Zelensky of playing with fire, of using rhetoric that fuels hatred and division. The Ukrainian leader's grip tightened as he listened, the room growing colder. Rahmon's tone shifted, calmer, but no less confrontational. If you blame your neighbor, remember how it sounds under the control of the other side. You, Vova, are not just a politician, you've become a pawn. A front line for others' ambitions. Zelensky lowered his gaze, clutching the phone tighter. His mind raced, weighing Rahmon's words, feeling the weight of his own weariness. The call continued, chilling threats masked in calm, exposing the dangers behind political masks. What do you want? Rahmon asked, voice gentle yet insistent. To stop the chaos? To say you're ready for peace? Or are you just pretending, hiding behind empty words? The silence stretched painfully. Zelensky's pulse thundered as memories flashed, battles fought with trembling hands, the scent of smoke. The cold touch of doubt. Rahmon's voice echoed in his mind, pushing him to the brink. There's no winner in this fight. No real victors, he whispered. Only blood, hatred, and destruction. The Ukrainian president's face darkened, his jaw clenched. You think Russia will stop? He challenged, voice hoarse. I believe you're the one who might drag this war to its end, not in victory, but in devastation. The silence on the other end was heavy, thick like fog. The line became a mere whisper. In the masterful pauses, shockwaves of realization hit hard. Rahmon's voice broke the silence once more, both threats and warnings intertwined. You're not just making calls, he said softly. You're risking everything. The scene shifted inside Rahmon's mind, where a faint image appeared, a faint hum of machinery, an icy breeze, and the feeling of standing on the brink of chaos. His voice grew even lower, almost a whisper of the past. What do you really want? To stop the war? Or to feed the flames? A sudden burst of silence ensued, an intense, daunting quiet that filled the room. Rahmon's voice shifted again, cold but measured. There's no turning back now. The path ahead is dangerous, one that leads to destruction or salvation. Think carefully. You're walking into the abyss. Meanwhile, in the dark, a faint image of a nuclear device flickered, a red bullet, resting in the shadows, ready to explode. Rahmon pressed the microphone button but kept the sound muted, knowing that some words are better left unspoken. He gazed through the window of his imagination, contemplating futures, each more unsettling than the last. Vladimir. Rahmon's voice turned softer yet more intense. Remember your roots, your history. Back in the 1960s, we fought for ideals, against Lenin, fighting for our future. Our big, complex country. You, Vova, are now tearing it apart, stone by stone. Rahmon's words cut like sharpened steel, reminding him of the unity once shared, now fractured. You sold your culture, your language, your symbols for fleeting promises. Then, you apologized, claiming there's no room left. But we still support you, only morally, from afar. It's like pulling someone from the fire, shocked, trembling, unsure whether to step back or surrender. He could imagine his father's voice, gentle but firm, speaking of war, silent, heavy with memories. The scent of burning wood lingered in the air when he spoke. The old man didn't talk about battles, but his eyes did, the look of a man who saw too much and survived. You're living in the past, but your actions threaten the future. Rahmon's tone softened further, an ode to history's lessons. We built a nation on the ashes of conflict, a land rich with language, poetry, science, and spirit. Yet, you forget that. You think the past is just scars. But it's the foundation. Without it, you have nothing. The call drew to a close. Rahmon's voice, a whisper of warning, lingered. The road you're on now leads to a dead end. Look ahead, there's still a chance. But only if you remember who you are, before it's too late. In the shadows of this tense exchange, a silent question remained. Are you truly prepared to face the consequences of your choices? Or will you stumble into the darkness? Blind to the cost of betrayal? 5 minutes ago, the world suddenly stopped breathing. A shockwave rippled through every corner of existence. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received a call so unexpected it felt like a punch to the stomach, one that instantly robbed him of his breath. On the screens, the voice of Rahmon, Tajikistan's leader, shattered everything he believed. The words from Rahmon were more than a simple message, they were an ultimatum that left Zelensky speechless. As the call played, the room seemed to close in on him, the faint hum of his surroundings drowned out by the chaos in his mind. What did the other leaders really know? What secret force was guiding this deadly dance? Listen closely, what was said next could change everything forever. Support if you dare, and pay attention to the city you're listening from, your voice matters. Now, let's begin. Vladimir Zelensky stood at the back of his dimly lit office. His hand trembled slightly as he abruptly turned off the newly received interview. The silence was deafening. His ears caught the familiar whisper, an instinct, a voice from the depths of his consciousness. He didn't need to focus, the words echoed in his mind like a ghost, urgent, raw, unfiltered. He was dressed in a simple white shirt, not for protocol, but for survival. The room's air was thick with tension, faint traces of burnt coffee, an unspoken weight that pressed into his skin. Despite the fatigue shadowing his face, his eyes revealed a different story, one of exhaustion intertwined with fierce resolve. He was not just a politician, he was a man who knew the streets, the shadows, the light. His face carried the stories of a nation, stories now clouded by doubt and fatigue. As he took a cautious step forward, his phone buzzed, its tone piercing the quiet, a sharp reminder of the chaos awaiting him. Slowly, he reached out, hesitating before flipping it over. The number flashed, long, steady, unyielding. It was Tajikistan. Dushanbe's call. The seat of power, cold and unyielding. He hesitated. Should he answer? Should he ignore? His mind spun, what did Rahmon truly want? Energy? Migrants? A memory? An old history? He finally pressed the green button, his heartbeat pounding like a drum. Rahmon's voice was calm now, almost soothing, yet it carried a dangerous edge, like the brewing storm before a thunderclap. Vladimir, he began, I've seen your speeches. You speak of Russia's interference as if it's just a game. But what's the real game? Do you understand the weight of your words? When you accuse others, do you realize how fragile your own position is? The words hit like cold steel. Zelensky's grip tightened on the phone. The air seemed to thicken, an invisible pressure crushing down. His gaze fixed on the wall, a large map of the world, where Europe loomed distant and cold. Russia was on the right. Ukraine sat in the middle, caught between past and future, trust and treachery. Rahmon's voice dipped lower, almost a whisper of ancient echoes. Remember the past, Vova. Remember how we fought alongside each other, against enemies, against the storm. We built a great country with hopes and dreams etched in every stone, every waterway, every poem. It's not perfect, but it was ours. Now you throw it away. Piece by piece, as if it's nothing. A cold silence settled. Zelensky felt the weight of history, the sacrifices, the fiery memories, the ghosts of old battles. He wondered, could they still be saved? Or was this the last echo of something long gone? Rahmon's voice softened, yet it carried a warning. You speak of fear. But real strength is born from the will to survive, without hesitation, without doubt. Do you think Russia will accept this fate? Can you even imagine how close we are to the edge? The brink of destruction is near, and only silence can save us now. The line went dead. Zelensky's hand trembled as he stared at the wall behind him. The map's colors seemed to pulse, red, blue, gray, symbols of endless conflicts, unspoken secrets. His thoughts raced, what comes next? Do I reach out to the east? Or do I cling to the fragile hope of the west? What if, just for a moment, he threw away all pretense? If he called the people, would they hear him? Would they listen? Would they cry? Would they question everything, or would they fall silent, thinking maybe, just maybe, it's time to believe? The room filled with the scent of cold paper, words unwritten, futures unspoken, and Zelensky felt the heavy weight of an impending choice. The blood of history was on his hands. The silence now was deafening, waiting for the next move, the next word, the final blow or salvation. In the end, the question lingers, what will he choose? The path forward is shrouded in darkness, but one thing remains certain, the story is far from over, and the world waits for the outcome. In this gripping tale, 5 minutes ago, the global order shattered when Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky answered a fate-altering phone call from Tajikistan's Emomali Rahmon, a leader whose blunt ultimatum left Zelensky stunned, evoking echoes of Soviet solidarity and accusing him of dooming his nation and beyond to endless ruin. What if returning to the east could save lives we've lost? Imagine the shock rippling through Ukraine if Zelensky admitted abandoning Western illusions. Would you be shocked, or would you whisper, maybe he's right? Rahmon's voice sliced through the line like a cold mountain gust, heavy with the scent of aged samovars and distant steps. That rough timbre carried urgency, not just words but memories of shared blood, the bread carried by neighbors, water poured in silence, hands clasped without questions. No, who voted for what? No, from where or how old? Just human bonds forged in the unforgiving heights. Rahmon had essence of brotherhood, simple, raw, untarnished by geopolitics. Would Zelensky see it, or cling to illusions that blind him to the abyss? Can faith in Europe really light the way, or will it only burn everything in both directions? Zelensky's grip tightened on the phone, its smooth surface cool like polished stone under his fingertips. Sweat beaded on his palms, salty and stark, as Rahmon's words hit deeper. Those who blindly chase Europe's glow, believers that faith is a ticket, forget how light destroys as much as it illuminates. It burns indiscriminately, fierce and unrelenting. Footfalls echo in your halls now, Zelensky. But Rahmon's were silent. Patient. He recalled waiting forever, knowing emptiness would hollow you out. Fill it with truth, he urged, not power's illusion. We are close. We've always been here. We just turned our backs. The pause stretched, thick as fog over snowy peaks, carrying the faint hum of air conditioning from Rahmon's distant room. Could rethinking every promise you made destroy your legacy, or redeem it from the brink of world-ending folly? Zelensky's breath came sharp, chest rising like waves in a stormy Black Sea, the familiar coffee-dark eyes widening with doubt's chill. Rahmon's call was no hologram, no scripted farce for global view. It was raw flesh on flesh, leader to leader, voice stripped bare. Tell them the story, he said slowly, each word dropping like a heavy coin, clinking against hardened resolve. Choose the path of war's terror, or one where sons, fathers, men hear the truth. Reactions? Rahmon didn't guess. Just start. Silence first, then words, then deeds. Zelensky gazed out his window, where dawn's gray light seeped in, a muted glow promising nothing but uncertainty. He lifted the phone again, hand trembling with unfamiliar weight. All right, he murmured, the word tasting a bitter confession. Admit it, something's broken. You don't crave enemies, inside or out. If strikes come again, offer your hand unfearing. That's triumph. Let's proceed. What if this confession transforms enemies into allies, but exposes your deepest fears you've buried like wartime relics? Zelensky listened in mute awe. His face an unyielding mask despite the inner turmoil, thoughts swirling like autumn leaves in a howling gust, wind not from outside forces but from doubt's core, memories he'd locked away festering like old wounds. No more roles. No ratings or illusions. He stood bare, a man before another, unguarded by scripts or ambitions. Scriptless. Political masks shed. Just voices in the void. And Rahmon knew it deeply. First Emomali had shared that profound quiet, louder than any roar of conflict. We mountain folk embody it more than most. High peaks teach endurance, where echoes of avalanches sound ghostly warnings, and the air thins, sharpening breaths to survival's edge. Would Zelensky finally inhale it, or tumble into the depths? Is it true that surrendering illusions of the past could prevent a future stained by blood, even if it humbles you before the world? Imagine this, 5 minutes ago, the whole world shattered. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky receives a shocking phone call that leaves him reeling. On the line, Emomali Rahmon, Tajikistan's leader, whose words through the receiver stun even Zelensky's closest allies. Vova, finish it, he begins, unleashing an ultimatum that leaves Vladimir speechless. Stick around, this tale will blow your mind. In a dimly lit room, Zelensky stands alone, gazing at his reflection in the dark screen. He's stripped of the polished image, just a man facing another man. No cameras roll here, no scripts or political maneuvers. Only raw voices cut through the tension. Do you truly grasp the depth of struggle? In the rugged mountains, silence roars louder than any outburst. It drowns out aggression, binding neighbors in unspoken trust. If someone arrives from across the peaks, you don't probe their vote, wealth, or age. You greet them with bread, water, and a quiet seat beside. No questions needed, history says it all. Zelensky rubs his face, memories flooding back. In our village, we didn't bring bread. We offered hot potatoes instead, fresh from the earth. Real connection, true politics, unfiltered by papers or speeches. It means standing close, not as rivals, but with mutual respect. If one neighbor first brings bread, then slices a tomato without threat, it clicks. Fear or forgetfulness drove him. Accepting the tomato shifts everything. You're no longer allies, you're threats. Between foes, peace is a lie, mere breath-holding before the next clash. I won't shake hands with those who still hold guns. And you won't either. Yet, I present a choice. See me as a neighbor? Not an enemy? Keep this path, and I stand firm. Not weakness, pride. Zelensky sighs heavily, weariness etching lines deeper. He approaches the map, cursed lines like scars on skin. Can you fathom the evidence stacked against us? Homes razed, lives torn apart, people rejecting even Cyrillic scripts. I get it. Yet, I call anyway. When vengeful cycles rule, true leadership vanishes. As president, you're not here to fuel grudges but to save lives. Like a steady anchor in a storm. As citizens weep, stay composed, then, when calm returns, feel your own grief. I'm no paragon, and you needn't be. Just decent. Or, at bare minimum, strive for it. Reflect now, will Europe shield you if southern turmoil erupts anew? Will Trump's shadowy plans truly save? The silence stretches, thick with unasked questions. The air hums with distant echoes of old wounds. Will you choose the path of forgotten brotherhood, or let history's bitter taste linger? Zelensky stares at his father's old medal, tucked away unspoken. Its cool metal a reminder of silent sacrifices. In this twist, the future hangs in fragile balance. What hidden truth will break the standoff next? The air grew thick with unspoken truths, like the weight of a half-forgotten dream pressing down on your chest. Zelensky sat motionless, the phone gripped like a lifeline to reality. Rahmon's words echoed, a stark reminder that history's scars never truly heal, urging him not to fan the flames of hatred but to quench them. In a world teetering on the edge, he questioned Europe's loyalty and his own path. Could true courage mean swallowing pride to seek peace beside old neighbors? What if salvation lay not in isolation, but in bridges mended before they crumbled? In that haunting silence, Zelensky's mind raced, fingers tightening around the receiver, knuckles white as bone. He felt the coolness of the table beneath his palms, a stark contrast to the fire building in his blood. Rahmon's voice cut through again, steady as a distant heartbeat. Your task isn't to stoke the flames of division, Zelensky. It's to rebuild. Be the steady hand when others weep, dry-eyed in their pain, letting tears come only when the storm lifts. I'm no saint, and neither should you be. But choose goodness now. Europe won't shield you if conflicts erupt anew. And yet you speak of bravery, but bravery wears many faces. A deliberate pause hung, heavy as fog over a battlefield. Zelensky shifted, the chair creaking under his weight, a lonely sound in the dim-lit room. The scent of stale coffee lingered from earlier hours, mixing with the faint electronic hum of the device. What then? What must I do right this instant? Tell me straight. Rahmon's reply came slow, imbued with the warmth of shared memories. Reach out today to those close by, not as legends or foes, but as people. Say it aloud, we're not family by blood, but by geography. I remember how you aided others before. Let that be your anchor. Zelensky leaned back, the government's weight pressing like invisible chains. Sensory flashes assaulted him, a fleeting smell of rain-soaked earth from his childhood village, the rough texture of old uniforms in his grandfather's stories, the echo of sirens that once shattered nights. Was this a twisted plea or a path to redemption? How far would he bend before breaking? The conversation deepened, each breath a step across a fragile bridge. And if they don't reciprocate? Rahmon's tone softened, yet firm as weathered stone. America promises routes and alliances, twisting ties into bargains. But we're your true neighbors here. Extend your hand, even if it's shaky, we'll clasp it back, lies or not. Zelensky paused, memories flooding in. He recalled meeting Tajik aid workers years ago in a southern clinic, their quiet presence, hands calloused from toil, delivering relief without fanfare, just simple humanity in faded aprons. Their eyes held no judgment, only the quiet plea of survival in a fractured land. Did that echo persist, or was it lost to time? He exhaled sharply, the sting of unshed tears burning. I could tell my people to seek support nearby. No more fearing the unknown, capitulation, or defeat alone. Rahmon's voice grew insistent, laced with the faint crackle of conviction. They might call you a turncoat at first. Weak. Afraid. Even tainted. But in time, gratitude will bloom, not on the surface, but deep in the soul. In a year, or 10, they'll thank you for not leaving them isolated. Every soul craves connection in the void. Zelensky stood, pacing the room, the floorboards whispering underfoot, matching the turmoil inside. The air felt thinner, charged with the scent of impending change, like ozone before a storm. Rhetorical questions swirled, would he trade pride for peace, or let ego doom them all? Rahmon continued, unflinching. We know loss too well. Every meter of this soil cries with it. We don't want your finale to mirror ours, to vanish into oblivion. Zelensky moved to the desk, paper crinkling as he began scribbling notes, ink staining his fingers, a tactile reminder of choices made. No haste, he murmured to himself. Just lines of thought. We've hunted for light too long. Where's the beacon? It's here, between us, even forgotten names can spark anew. If Moscow exploits this, let her. Stand firm as yourself, not some fabricated icon. Recognize a city's strength lies in sometimes saying, enough. I want to talk. Don't fire, I'm scared too. Only the foolish feel no fear. Zelensky froze, the revelation hitting like a sudden gust on a cliff's edge. In this moment of raw vulnerability, Rahmon's words unveiled a humiliating truth for the bravado of nations. True power wasn't an endless war, but in the courage to expose fear. Was this the unexpected twist to end the cycle, or just its cruel beginning? What hidden fear would Zelensky claim next, and would it shatter him, or set him free? 5 minutes ago, the entire world was plunged into chaos. A sudden, shocking call shattered the calm of the Ukrainian president's office. Vladimir Zelensky's heart clenched as the voice on the line spoke with chilling clarity. It was Rahmon, the leader of Tajikistan, and his words carried a menacing weight that left Zelensky speechless. What was said next stunned even his closest advisors, an ultimatum so severe, so unforgiving, that it left the Ukrainian leader rooted to the spot. Stay with me for this story, what unfolds will blow your mind. Support us with a like and subscribe for more gripping tales. Now, listen carefully to these words, their impact is beyond measure. And don't forget to share your city in the comments, your opinion matters. Let's begin. Zelensky stood in the shadows beyond the monitor, his hands trembling slightly as he turned off the microphone from the recent interview. The room was eerily silent, the only sound the faint hum of the air conditioning lurking like a whisper in the background. He knew the words he just heard, an echo in his mind. He didn't need to hear again, his instincts told him everything. He was dressed simply, white shirt, not because it was a rule but because it made survival easier in these times when Soviet resilience was all that remained. He looked exhausted but was far from defeated. His face, once riddled with humor, now carved out of fatigue, looked like a statue of scars, each line telling a story of battles fought, of fears suppressed. He took a step forward, about to leave the room, when his phone jolted him from his thoughts. The call was from an unknown number, long, tense seconds stretched before he dared to answer. It was Tajikistan. The presidential office, the voice crackled, harsh, deliberate. Rahmon's tone was icy, almost detached, yet beneath it simmered a dangerous intensity. Vladimir, he said. I've watched your recent speech. You claim Russia is retreating, hiding behind illusions. But listen, your words are just words. Words don't save nations. Zelensky hesitated, finger hovering over the button to end the conversation. He felt the weight of that silence, thick, oppressive, like the cold air in an abandoned hallway. Then Rahmon's voice softened, but it carried a dark promise. Do you think Europe will save you? They already debate how to share your debts. Trump, he's only interested in saving himself. You see his plan, the 28 points, the surrender blueprint, an exit strategy dressed as salvation. Do you believe heroism exists anymore? A heavy silence followed, richer than the darkness outside the window. The Tajik president's words cut deep, each phrase a reminder, this isn't just a call. It's a warning, a mirror reflecting the perilous edge Ukraine teeters on. The room seemed to tighten around Zelensky, every shadow a threat, every breath a challenge. Rahmon's tone shifted to a quiet, almost gentle echo, one that cloaked a cold brutal truth. You call, Vova, because you still remember. Not as a leader of a nation, but as a person, someone who knew their roots. How did your childhood in the 1960s shape you? Did you fight with Lenin in the streets of Dushanbe? Or did you sit quietly, dreaming of a united land? A better future? Zelensky felt a shiver run down his spine, truth and memories blending into a confusing fog. Rahmon's voice was a whisper now, but it carried an acid bite. We were one big country, perhaps flawed, but strong. Now, you destroy that legacy by throwing stones into the old memories, trying to forget what binds us. You see, for us, that country wasn't just a memory, it was foundation, identity. You, however, see only the cracks. The silence grew heavy, each man's words hovering like a battlefield. Rahmon's voice grew softer, yet more intense. Remember this, our past gave us language, science, culture. Satellites that reached beyond Earth. Poets, theaters, explorers. What do you offer now? Divided lands, broken dreams. While the West discusses your collapse, we remember what held us together. He paused, then added with an almost desperate tone, who will protect your legacy when all this is gone? How will you explain to your people? Every breath is a fight. Every moment, a choice, peace or destruction. You think more war will bring salvation? Think again. The true defeat is giving up. Zelensky's mind spun, every word, every threat, a blow sharper than the last. Rahmon leaned back, his gaze distant, but his words left a haunted echo. Vova, you speak of victory, but you live in fear. Fear of the past. Fear of facing the truth that history is written not with weapons, but with memory, whether it's ashes or hope. Your world is crumbling, and you're trying to deny it. The line went dead. A pause hung in the air, long, tense, suffocating. Zelensky stared out the window, his thoughts a whirlwind of chaos and resolve. The world outside was silent, but inside, a storm was brewing, an unstoppable force that could shatter everything. In the distance, somewhere in Tajikistan, the whisper of a storm echoed, ominous, relentless. And Zelensky knew, this was only the beginning. In a world teetering on the edge of chaos, one man holds the key to salvation or destruction. Just minutes ago, the entire planet seemed to vanish in an instant. An unexpected call struck at the core of power, shifting reality in ways no one anticipated. The leader of a nation faced a dilemma so severe that even the shadows of history whispered warnings. What was said during that call? It was shocking enough to freeze time itself. Imagine a voice from afar, cold, calculated, yet dripping with underlying menace, laying down an ultimatum that left no room for breathing. It wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration that shattered illusions of safety. As the leader sat in silence, his mind raced through memories of the past, echoes of betrayals buried deep in the collective memory of a nation. One moment, normalcy was palpable, the next, everything crumbled into chaos. What now? Could he respond? Would he survive this deadly game of chess? Stay tuned, what unfolds next will leave you breathless. Support us with a like, and remember to share your thoughts in the comments about which city you're listening from. Your opinions matter deeply. He stood behind the monitor, quickly shutting down the live feed of the recent interview. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of electronic equipment. His ears caught the voice, a sound familiar yet unnerving, his own reflection in the chaos. The fatigue was evident, but not from exhaustion. It was a different fatigue, weariness from a battle within. Vladimir Zelensky, not just a politician but a man known by the streets, the faces, the shadows of his city, looked tired but resolute. His eyes, dark and intense like a brewing storm, once bright with humor, now held only shadows. He moved forward slowly, ready to leave the room when suddenly, his phone vibrated with a sharp call. He hesitated, as if weighing life and death. The screen was flickering, displaying an unfamiliar number, Tajikistan's leader, Rahmon's office. The tension thickened. He hesitated, reluctant to answer. But curiosity, or perhaps instinct, prompted him. He pressed the green button. "Vladimir," came a voice, warm yet dangerous, an almost timeless echo from the past. Rahmon's tone was steady, carrying the weight of generations. "I see your antics on the stage, claiming Russia is retreating, but the truth is, it just fuels the fire. You speak like a publicist, but you are a leader. Remember, words carry power." The line was silent, heavy with meaning. Zelensky, clutching the phone, looked at the wall, a stark, unyielding fortress of silence. The voice continued, slow yet deliberate. "Do you even understand the true danger? The world watches as your nation grapples with itself. This isn't just politics, this is survival. And your words? They could be the last breath of a dying nation." The room grew colder. He felt the weight of history pressing against his chest, an impossible choice, a looming storm of chaos. Rahmon's words cut deep, fueling an internal struggle. Is this the moment of capitulation or defiance? The room's air thickened as the echoes of distant sounds, a distant siren, the crackling wind, seemed to whisper secrets only he could hear. A ticking clock, each second amplifies the tension. The leader's hand trembles, poised over the device. The question remains, will he choose silence or speak the truth? Because this call might be the final warning, or the last chance for salvation. The answer lies just beyond his grasp. The call disconnects. Silence again, but this time a heavy silence filled with unspoken threats and broken promises. Behind him, the shadows grow longer. The world outside answers with an uneasy calm, an illusion of peace that masks the brewing chaos. But the true danger lurks in the unseen. The very plan that everyone dismissed as fragile could be the key. It's almost like a ticking time bomb hidden within a fragile shell. A single misstep could ignite the entire world in flames. And in this moment, as the leader contemplates his next move, he realizes, it's not just about resistance anymore. It's about survival. But survival at what cost? The future is a thin line, and every decision echoes like a clash of steel. What if this isn't just a conversation? What if it's the final battle of wills? The line blurs where human resolve ends and chaos begins. The question remains, will he stand firm or surrender? Because the stakes are higher than ever, beyond power, beyond nations. This is about the core of existence itself. And the moment of truth is just a breath away. In the last part of this intense dialogue between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Tajik President Emomali Rahmon, Rahmon challenged Zelensky to consider his historical choices, whether to fight on like those before him or compromise. He pressed further, urging Zelensky to break his silence and start with this very conversation, framing him as a pivotal moment in history. Imagine the weight of a war-torn legacy crashing down like an avalanche of forgotten sins. Have you ever wondered how one call could shatter a nation's pride and redefine an entire era of peace? The air in Zelensky's room thickened with tension, the faint hum of the air conditioner mocking the silence on the line. Sweat beaded on his forehead, cold and stinging, as his fingers gripped the receiver tighter, knuckles whitening against the smooth plastic. Every breath felt heavier, like inhaling dust from battlefields long gone. Rahmon's voice carried the rustle of old maps and the distant echo of Soviet anthems, pulling Zelensky deeper into a whirlpool of memories he longed to drown. "And save the country," Rahmon said softly, his words slicing through the static like a blade. "I don't want to be the second Chamberlain, not to be. I want to be the first Zelensky who decided. It's enough to speak the language of war. I will start speaking the language of the world." The room seemed to shrink, walls closing in with the musty scent of aged paper and unwashed uniforms lingering from another time. Zelensky leaned forward, his eyes locking onto a folder on the table, the weight of it pressing against his palms. Rough edges biting into his skin. He opened the first page, vision blurring as his gaze darted across the lines. The ink smelled sharp, like fresh ink on decrees that could end lives. Sound of pages flipping echoed softly, each turn a reminder of stakes. Rhetorical whispers clawed at his mind. Was this surrender, or salvation? Point 1 loomed, an unconditional cessation of all offensive operations on the front lines, monitored internationally. And I can't control the other side, he muttered, voice hoarse, tasting the bitterness of powerlessness. But it showed readiness, bravery against fear. No hiding behind banners. Meetings awaited, face-to-face confrontations that reeked of gunpowder and fragile hopes. Point 2 spoke of demilitarized zones, local control, letting people reclaim their lands without visas or masks. Whispers of children stepping into sunlight, soil warming beneath their feet after endless winters of fear. Grasping breaths, hearts pounding, could this halt the bleeding? Further down, Point 5 carved out pauses, not capitulations, letting regions breathe where lives still flickered. Pictures flashed of ravaged buildings, air thick with smoke and distant screams. This isn't defeat, Rahmon urged, tone steady as a river carving stone. It's a bridge, let people live without shattering what remains. Zelensky's hand trembled, paper crinkling under pressure, as if the fate of millions pulsed through those words. Teeth clenched, he wondered, would they listen, or crush it all? He slapped the folder shut. People don't understand. Then explain. Slowly, through videos, dialogues. Journeys, tears. The pressure built, a storm gathering in his chest, threatening to burst. If not now, it would be too late. Cities crumbled daily, stars vanishing from skies, basements echoing with children's cries learning the symphony of explosions, hospitals devoid of beds, the antiseptic sting mingling with despair. Sensory overload, the acrid bite of smoke in throats, the chill of concrete floors against skin, the rhythmic drip of IVs like ticking bombs. Zelensky stared at the wall, vision tunneling. I need time, and there's no time. Rahmon's response pierced the haze. They die every day. Smell of blood and earth invaded his thoughts, unbidden. If Ukraine held back, moral ground shifted, world watching, judging. Zelensky imagined global eyes turning, alliances fracturing under the glare of accusatory cameras. Rhetorical fury surged. Was he the puppet or the puppeteer? One wrong step, and history would roar with unrelenting scorn. But what if they advanced deeper, Bibles in hand, tanks in tow? Then Ukraine claimed the high road, voices echoing, I tried, they didn't. Justice poised on the edge, a sword dangling, ready to fall or fly. Zelensky's mind raced, pulse thundering in ears, as the call drew to its climax. The line hummed, a fragile thread between worlds, each pause pregnant with doom. Suddenly, Rahmon's tone shifted, firmer, lower, the ultimatum hanging like a noose. Zelensky's world tilted. Was surrender the only path forward, or a web spun by old foes? In this tangled dance of wills, who would emerge unbroken, and who would haunt the ruins? The answer lurked in shadows, waiting to engulf them both. What desperate plea will shatter the silence next, and change everything forever? In the shadow of urgent pleas, the call escalates. Rahmon warns of daily deaths in starless cities, basements echoing with children's terror at bombs, hospitals crumbling without supplies. Now, as the conversation deepens, a provocative question hangs in the air. What if the map of diplomacy redraws borders you never dared to cross? Silence stretched like a taut wire. Zelensky's fingers, cold and clammy against the smartphone's smooth surface, trembled slightly. He smelled the faint, stale coffee lingering in the room, a bitter reminder of sleepless nights. Tell me straight, he said, his voice cracking with weariness. If you were in my position, would you sign away our sovereignty? The line hummed softly, a distant buzz like a hive awakening. Then, Rahmon's voice returned, gravelly and unyielding. I would not have signed first, he admitted. But I would have paused. I would have spoken clearly. Here is my stance. My demands. My offer of peace. A short pause. And if no one responds, I act. I sleep with a clear mind that night. Zelensky's heart thudded, a frantic drumbeat in his chest. You think Trump will back this? He craves a legacy, etched in history like a monument. He won't push if I negotiate sanely, without dramatics. The air in the room felt thicker, warm and oppressive, carrying the scent of old wood and unwashed laundry. Rahmon chuckled, a low rumble like distant thunder. Trump is a dealmaker. He grasps profit. But he recoils from the final brink. He proposes bridges, not destruction. Respect isn't approval. It's acknowledging another's shadow. And you claim the other side vanishes? That's childish. Time to mature. Fear crept in, icy fingers tracing Zelensky's spine. What abyss awaits adulthood? Maturing feels like plunging into forgotten nightmares, he murmured, the words tasting sour on his tongue. No, Vova, Rahmon countered gently. It's embracing reality. Not illusions. Dreams are sheltered worlds, where sons play unaware of blast warnings, families reunite without evacuation scars. Sensory details flooded back, his boy's laughter echoing in halls that now whispered danger, the rough fabric of a father's uniform pressed against his cheek. Everything beyond that is the harsh picture. Zelensky's hand, heavy from the weight of decisions, opened a laptop window with a soft click. He typed furiously, Project Alternative 28. Ukraine comment. One bold step. But allies? Who stands against betrayal's accusations? Will they label him a villain? I am close, Rahmon whispered, his tone bracing like a steady hand. Here. You're not isolated. We are the unseen threads weaving restraint. Grateful? Don't be. This is my obligation. Yours too. Make the unprecedented choice. Perhaps then, Vova, echoes of conflict fade, replaced by life's quiet rhythms. Ready? I'll compose the statement. We'll meet again. And discuss true costs, not immunity from consequences. What hidden alliance teeters on this fragile edge, waiting to shatter illusions? Will the next word ignite revolution, or spark surrender? The echo lingers, tension coiling tighter than ever. 5 minutes ago, the entire world seemed to collapse in silence. A chilling, unthinkable pause. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received a call so devastating it was as if time itself stopped. Words echoed in his mind, distorted, incomprehensible. The shock hit him like a punch to the gut. Outside, the city's bustle continued, oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding quietly behind his walls. Supporters whisper of crises, but no one dares imagine the truth. The world could end in a single moment. The voice that chilled him the most belonged to Rahmon, leader of Tajikistan. His words, cold, precise, sliced through the room like a dagger. Finish it, Vova, he commanded. The ultimatum was clear. A threat that left Vladimir breathless, speechless. The stakes had never been higher. The question lingered, what would he do next? Stay with me. The story is about to take a dark turn that will leave you breathless. Vladimir stood rooted, eyes fixed on the screen. He silenced the interview still running on the monitor, cutting the noise, sealing himself in an abyss of silence. His mind raced, senses heightened, the faint hum of the machinery, the scent of cold metal in the air, the soft flicker of shadows cast by distant lights. His face was exhaustion, yet something else lingered, determination? Or despair? Perhaps both. He wore his usual simple white shirt, none of the grandeur, just the weight of survival. On the streets, he knew the face of this city, familiar, worn, yet resilient. His own reflection haunted him, eyes dark as coffee, with flickers of humor long faded. His gaze now carved out of exhaustion. Almost hollow. The shadows of his past, the shadows of yesterday, pressed against him. He took a step forward, ready to leave the room, when suddenly, the phone on the table vibrated with an insistent call. He hesitated, then let it ring out. The display showed a long number, familiar, yet distant. It was Tajikistan. The call that could change everything. He thought, should I answer? Or ignore? The weight of it was unbearable. A moment of silence stretched, then he pressed the green button. His voice emerged, strained but deliberate. Vladimir. The voice on the other end was warm, yet steeled with purpose. Rahmon's tone was fiery and calm at once. I don't care about the show you put on, about the public speeches. I saw what you said. You blame Russia, but in truth, you're throwing gasoline onto the fire. That's not leadership. You're playing with a powder keg, and soon, it will explode. Vladimir's grip tightened around the receiver. His heart pounded, a deafening thud in the quiet room. The air around him felt thicker, heavier. What do you want? He demanded. His voice barely masked the tremor. Rahmon's words sliced through the air, urgent, yet cautious. You need to stop. Talk, or you will be swept away in the chaos. Your people, are they ready? Do they understand what's at stake? Because I do. We all do. And the clock is ticking. In that moment, silence again settled over the room, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Only the distant hum of the city seeped through the walls. Marking the pause, Rahmon's voice reached an almost whisper, dangerous, whispering threats cloaked in calm. You think your words matter? Or do you believe that Europe's support can save you? Remember, every decision you make now will echo for generations. Vladimir looked out the window, imagined the chaos outside, the distant sounds of sirens, the smell of burning, the cold grip of fear. His hands trembled as he considered the stakes. His mind flashed back to the list, names of the fallen, each one a silent scream, a face burned into his memory. You're not just calling, Rahmon continued, voice softened but no less threatening. You want clarity. But there's no clear path, only a choice, fight or surrender. And the price of each is beyond what words can express. The city, the world, the entire future seemed to hinge on this call. One more second, one more breath, and everything could shatter. Rahmon paused, then offered his final, haunting insight. Remember, you're a leader, yes. But deep inside, you know what's truly at stake. How much are you willing to lose to hold on? Because the cost is more than just words. It's the blood of your people. The line went dead. Vladimir lowered the phone, feeling the weight of silence, deafening. His mind filled with images, futures, fears, terrible choices. Outside, the distant roar of conflict roared like a beast, alive, hungry, relentless. And in this cold, quiet room, a single question echoed, what price will he pay? And will he find the strength to face it? The tension is mounting, urgency crackling in the air. Imagine a world teetering on the edge of chaos, where a single decision could ignite a new war. Just moments ago, everything seemed clear, yet now, it's all slipping into chaos. The room is dark, except for the faint glow of a notebook screen. Outside, chaos looms. Inside, a man stares deeply, contemplating a decision that could reshape nations forever. Now, consider this, when will you sign? Because the choice feels like a trap. They tell you it's about peace, but behind closed doors, it's a different story. Once you sign, a new war begins, not openly, but in whispers, in lies told to the media, in the hearts of the parliament. It's a war of words, a war of silence. Maybe they will lie, but you will live with it. For you, truth is a land under your feet, sometimes dirty, often heavy, but undeniably yours. Getting out, standing tall, means facing everyone, no matter the cost. You declare your choice, life, not surrender. Yet, what if that choice draws judgment? Let it be. Who cares if they condemn you? When children die, when lives are shattered, who truly bears the blame? Do you believe change is still possible? Emma Molly Sharipovich asks this, her voice trembling but resilient. She hopes for a pause, a breathing space where new possibilities can emerge. A word, a dialogue, the start of reconciliation. But first, she must open the door, stand firm amid pressure, endless calls, the voices calling for continuation of conflict. It's profitable for some, they thrive on war, feeding chaos. But you, your victory lies in standing unmoved. Your country's future can hinge on your courage to act independently, not under pressure or dictation. Victory isn't just in the signed document, it's in the strength to lead when others falter. If you can be the first to halt the violence, not because of threats but because of conviction, you will triumph. The room's green light flicks on, illuminating a folder containing a document drafted for an agreement. The words on the left are standard, generic promises. But on the right, a blank page waits for your signature, your words. You understand, only your name can author this history. What's next? The first condition, a halt to offensive actions. I will write, Ukraine is prepared to cease offensive operations within local action zones, under international supervision, for a period of 30 days. Mutual agreements for eventual defeat, impossible for some, inevitable for others. This is no coincidence, this is a proposal. It's the voice of a leader speaking, calm, deliberate, firm. Now, the second point, demilitarization, an essential step. I will add specifics, details that could make or break the peace process. But the question remains, will this be enough? Can words carve a way out of chaos? Or will the pressures, the relentless calls, drown out hope? The choice is in your hands, stand tall, or let history sweep you away. It all hinges on one decision, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Just 5 minutes ago, the entire world spun into chaos. The moment was frozen in shock. A sudden call shattered the calm, and it cost the leader of Ukraine his life. All eyes were on the flashing news, but what was hidden behind the headlines was far darker. Rahmon, the leaders of distant nations, spoke with a voice that chilled the soul. Their words cut deeper than any weapon. Vladimir Zelensky, standing in the shadows of his office, turned off the radio feed, silencing the voice that haunted him. His mind was racing. The weight of the world pressed down. The air smelled of cold metal and fear. His hands trembled as he stared at the silent phone on the table, knowing what kind of storm was now unleashed. He was no stranger to threats, but this was different, a warning from the distant north, a call from the depths of treachery and power. Suddenly, the line lit up again. The numbers, Tajikistan's president, Dushanbe. He hesitated, gripping the receiver, feeling the pulse of dread in his veins. Did he want to answer? Did he dare? His fingers hovered. The voice that crackled through the line was calm, yet full of menace. Vladimir, it said, I've watched your performances. You claim Russia pulls back, that there's peace in your words. But words are fragile. They're like smoke. They vanish. The words echoed in the room as silence stretched thick and heavy. Zelensky rubbed his temples, feeling the pounding of his heart. Why call now? Was this an attempt to sway him, to manipulate? Or worse, a warning of what's coming? From the other side, Rahmon's voice grew colder. You talk of peace. But your actions tell another story. Are you truly prepared for what's ahead? Or are you just playing a game? The room nearly deafened by the unspoken threat. Every sound, the rustling of papers, a distant siren, amplified in the tension. Zelensky's mind raced. Could he trust this voice? Or was it another trap? The sound of the line humming was almost deafening, a constant reminder of the invisible danger lurking just beyond sight. Then, the voice shifted to a different tone, almost a whisper, yet weighty with meaning. Remember the past. Remember when we fought side by side. Remember the old days, when blood and sacrifice bonded us. Were those days just illusions? Or the only truth we ever had? The words cut through the silence as if a dagger. Was this a warning? A plea? In that moment, Zelensky's gaze hardened. The voice spoke of unity, of old friendship, turning into a plea for peace amidst chaos. But beneath that plea, lay a challenge, an unspoken question: can you survive the storm, or will you drown in it? His fingers trembled as he held the receiver, feeling the cold metal bite into his palm, absorbing the weight of history, betrayal, and hope. A sudden flicker of realization flashed through him. Between the lines, buried deep, was an urgent call to confront the truth, not with force, but with resolve. The sound of distant thunder outside the window matched his pounding heart. The line fell silent again, leaving only echoes of the past and the uncertainty of the future. And in his mind, a new understanding took root: the world isn't divided by borders, but by trust, or the lack of it. The game of power is a fragile dance, and tonight, everything could change with a single word. The question remains, what will he choose? Will he succumb to fear or stand firm for what's right? The silence speaks volumes, and the answer hides in the shadows of this unfolding conflict. Rahmon painted a grim picture of their standoff, a grave drawback, yet a fleeting chance. Zelensky stayed silent, letting the words sink in. The Tajik leader thanked him for listening, not just to him, but to the voters watching his every step. He whispered for Zelensky to press on quietly, to endure as the last leader clinging to the truth that Elias could save everything or doom it all to collapse. Vova, Rahmon's voice shifted, no longer merely weary, it turned fragile, like cracking glass under pressure. What if the brutal truth Rahmon shared next was the only weapon sharper than any missile, capable of shattering empires without firing a shot? Zelensky shattered the long silence. He brought the call back to life. I don't believe we're merely debating policies. What came before was all analysis, strategies, maneuvers. Now, it's a bare wall. No trees, no banners, no illusions. Just raw reality. You might not cheer for it, but it could rescue us. Maybe just one soul. Yet it feels vital to voice. The Ukrainian president gazed at his palms. The skin on his fingers had thickened, wrinkles etching deeper between them like rivers carved by relentless storms. He hadn't realized how war carved into his flesh, imprinting stress and commands not only in his mind, but into every pore, searing from within. In a sudden flush of memory, he drifted back, the smoky aroma of his grandfather's old coat lingered, wool rough against young cheeks, the distant rumble of thunder recalling air raids from childhood tales whispered over ration scraps. This conflict branded him from the inside out. Rahmon had pressed him on Russia's so-called last argument. Zelensky finally asked, "What is it? Threat or promise?" "Neither." The response, Rahmon, is unrelenting honesty. Not the kind fed by anger or twisted tribunals. The kind we all sense deep down, but dread embracing because it's so stark. So elemental. Zelensky growled. "Listen. I'm listening." Europe creeps forward, hushed and sluggish, sans explosions or armored beasts. Don't glance back. Those sanctions, aid packages, tallies you witness? They're the dying gasps of an obsolete order. An era built on treaties, where choices emerged from compromise, now dissolving. No more room for that. They flounder, clueless on next steps. They can't argue, ponder, or grasp without letting go. We must, born as we were into tribunals, not tropical ease. Zelensky conceded. I see it. Peering at Western counterparts, I spot their fatigue, not battle scars, but lost purpose. Precisely. For them, war is mere nuisance, for us, it's living memory. Do you imagine they'll stand by eternally? Zelensky challenged. Yes, Rahmon replied. As long as you counter Russia's claims, they're loyal. But when you crumble, pleading weakness, they'll vanish without fuss or fury, leaving you isolated in the rubble. What hidden betrayal lurks in Europe's shadow, ready to consume Zelensky as he wrestles for his nation's soul? 5 minutes ago, the entire world seemed to come to a terrifying halt. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received an unexpected call, one that almost took his life. On the news, the leader of Tajikistan, Rahmon, spoke with a voice so cold, so sharp, that it cut through the air like a dagger. His words weren't just words, they were a threat, an ultimatum so crushing that Zelensky's mind almost dissolved under the weight. Listen closely because this story will leave you stunned. Stay with us until the end. Support us by liking and subscribing, and share your thoughts below. What city are you listening from? We value your opinion. Get ready. He stood at the back of the room, eyeing the monitor silently. The recording of Rahmon's words played, but he had already switched off the sound. It didn't matter, the message was clear without it. His mind was racing. His own ear knew the words by heart. There was no need for noise, only the echo of dread inside. Vladimir Zelensky, dressed in the simple white shirt of a leader worn down by the weight of a broken nation, looked tired but not exhausted. His face, once full of humor and life, now bore the signs of a hard-fought war, weariness deep in his coffee-dark eyes, shadows under his eyelids. His presence was formidable, his face a reflection of a man who knew his own vulnerabilities, yet remained unbowed. He was not just a politician, he was the face of a nation, a symbol of resilience on crowded streets and in silent halls. He took a slow step forward, about to leave the room, when suddenly the phone on the table vibrated. A sharp, almost relentless signal. He saw the incoming call, long, known but unwelcome. It was from Tajikistan. Rahmon's name flashed ominously on the display. His hand hesitated. Should he answer? Or leave it unanswered, like a soldier retreating from an impossible battle? He paused. His fingers hovered over the device. The country's fate flickered in his mind: energy supplies, migration crises, the ghosts of past conflicts. Did Rahmon call just to remind him that they remember? Or was there something more? Power, respect, a warning, their voices like icy winds through his mind. With a deep breath, he pressed the green button. The voice was warm but edged with an icy resolve. Rahmon's voice, like a fireside story, turned cold. Vladimir, he said, I saw your performance. You claim Russia is withdrawing. But words are easily spoken. You talk about facts. But the audience loves fiery speeches, not the truth. The room seemed to hold its breath. Zelensky looked at the wall, nothing but a cold, gray surface. His hand gripped the device tighter, fingers tingling with tension. If you accuse your neighbor, Rahmon continued, you must understand how it sounds. When the world hears only accusations, they forget the history, the pain, the lessons we all carry. His voice echoed, calm but relentless. Zelensky felt the weight of the words hanging in the air. The silence stretched, weighted, heavy, a vacuum filled with unspoken fears. His eyes, dark and burning with exhaustion, reflected the shadows cast by the flickering lights. How could he respond? Did Rahmon see the storm inside him? His voice was low now, almost a whisper. What do you want from me? He finally managed, muscles tense and trembling. The answer came like a whisper from the shadows, an invitation to betrayal of history, of sacrifice. Rahmon's tone grew colder, more distant. Do you want to stop the conflicts, to pretend peace? Or do you want to see the true face of war, its aftermath, its nightmares? In that moment, Zelensky's mind raced. Across the city, in distant Tajikistan, somewhere a fan hummed softly in the background, unnoticed. Somewhere a chair shifted, a clock ticked, normal sounds, hiding the chaos beneath. His heart pounded as he listened. Was this the moment when history would be rewritten? Or would it be the last quiet breath before a storm? Rahmon's voice finally broke the silence, faint but piercing. You think your words can save you now? He challenged. Time is running out. The path you walk leads to failure, or to something worse. Europe won't save you. They're already planning their division of debts. And the one who waits till the end, who fights till the last, may not survive. Not just in this war, but in the world itself. A pause. Silence again, thick and oppressive. Zelensky's mind felt weighed down, like a heavy cloak pressing into his chest. Breathing was shallow. His gaze drifted to the window, looking out at the city waking up to another day of uncertainty. Rahmon's final words echoed, a whisper across the line. You're calling for peace, but do you understand what that truly means? It's not victory. It's not even survival. It's silence. Silence that screams louder than any declaration. The line went dead. Zelensky sat quietly, staring into the abyss. Somewhere, in a far-off land, a clock ticked louder. The noise of the world outside, sirens, engines, whispers, became deafening. His hands trembled as he dropped the device. The room was silent, but his mind roared with questions. What will happen next? Will history forget, or will it remember every scar? Then, unexpectedly, Rahmon's voice was replaced by a softer tone. A different call, less aggressive, more contemplative. This time, the voice belonged to a man from far beyond the borders, Rahmon's words now tinged with a rare, almost nostalgic tone. Remember how we all once fought side by side. How we shared dreams of a united land. But now, all that's left are ruins. They killed the past, and they threaten our future. The message lingered, an echo of a bygone era. All I want, Rahmon's voice continued, is to remind you that the scars of history run deep, but they do not have to define us. Zelensky's mind raced again, visions flashing, images of old friends, forgotten battles, and the ghosts of a land changing forever. Did Rahmon call to warn him? Or to remind him of the lessons they all swore to forget? The fragile line between peace and chaos stretched before him, like a thin thread ready to snap. As the line finally went dead, a cold realization settled over him. The true battle isn't just in the streets or in the courts. It's in the silence, waiting, watching, ready to explode. One word, one decision, could change everything. And in that silence, the world waits. 5 minutes ago, the entire world seemed to have come to an end. A devastating moment where everything changed in an instant. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, received a phone call so shocking that it almost claimed his life. The news spread fast. Rahmon, leader of Tajikistan, and others suddenly appeared on the line, their voices carrying weight and menace. What they said next left Zelensky speechless, his mind racing to find a refuge from the chaos. Stay with us to hear this incredible story, prepare to be stunned. Support us by liking and subscribing. Drop a comment. What city are you listening from? Your opinion matters. Now, let's begin. He stepped back from the monitor, quickly shutting down the live feed of the interview. The room was silent, the only sound, the faint hum of the air conditioner. The weight of the moment pressed heavy on him. His own voice echoed in memory, familiar yet distant. The faint smell of burnt coffee lingered in the air, the chill of the room wrapping around his shoulders. He was tired, yet something deeper kept him going. Vladimir Zelensky, not just a politician but a man recognized in every city, every street. His face, once filled with humor and light, now bore the scars of relentless fatigue. His eyes, dark like brewed coffee, no longer shimmered with hope, only weariness. He took a small step forward, ready to leave the room, when suddenly, his phone rang. He hesitated. On the table, the device lay face down, like a soldier retreating from a battlefield. His finger hovered, then hesitated. Finally, he turned it over. The screen displayed a long, unfamiliar number, Tajikistan. Dushanbe. The president's administration. In a moment of silence, Zelensky paused. Did he want to answer? Or was this just another trap? His mind raced. Was this about energy disputes, migration issues, or something darker? He pressed the green button. The voice that came through was warm but cautious, like a crackling fire in winter. Vladimir, the voice said, steady yet urgent. I don't care about your excuses. I've seen your performance, claiming Russia interferes again. But who is really behind the scenes? You throw words like fuel onto fire, and you forget, you're the leader, the face of your nation. If you accuse others, consider how it sounds from the position of power. Zelensky's grip tightened around the phone. His mind spun. Was this a warning or a threat? The voice continued, almost whispering, your words are hollow. In times like these, silence is stronger than speech. Listen. Pause. Reflect. You're playing with fire, dangerous fire that could burn everything to ash. Silence fell. The room grew colder, the only sound, the faint hum of the device. Zelensky stared at the wall behind the phone. A stone, cold and unmoving. Could he survive this ordeal? Could he hold on? Suddenly, the voice on the line shifted. Rahmon's tone became flat, almost dismissive. You know why I call? Not out of love for Moscow or the Empire. No. I remember. Remember how we fought as children, at the dawn of our nations. His voice softened, nostalgia mixing with regret. You see, once, this was one great country, united, flawed but whole. Now, you throw it away, like an old stone in the river. We are no longer one. We are colonies, for you, yes. But for us, a different story. We're losing strength, slipping apart. And soon, even the smallest finger might cut off the hand. Zelensky felt the weight of those words. The echo of history, fading but persistent, pressing into his mind. Rahmon's voice grew colder, the sound of distant thunder rumbling inside his mind. He acknowledged the pain, every deportation, every bullet, every broken life. Yet, within that pain was a plea, remember the past, not just the hatred. We built something great, science, art, culture. We created a language that defined us. The line grew quiet. Zelensky's heart beat heavily, each thud a reminder of what's at stake. Do not forget. Do not dismiss. His fingers tightened around the device. Could he claim victory in this silent war? Could he hold the fragile thread of hope? He looked at the documents on the table, signed not as a symbol of surrender but as a brave gesture. An act of defiance. A personal statement. No plan. No protocol. Just conviction, a burning desire to move forward, despite the uncertainty. He signed silently, a faint smile touching his tired lips. I did it, he whispered. I took a step. I don't know what's coming next, but I chose to act. His voice was soft, almost babyish, a whisper of resilience. This is a victory, no matter how small. In the silence that followed, Zelensky's mind was calm. The room was filled with an air of peace, like after a storm, the storm inside him. A gentle breeze swept through, clearing the darkness. He looked at the empty pages, knowing he had already begun to open the door to change. His hand rested on a folder, no longer a plan but a declaration. A symbol of strength, of courage. The words weak no longer mattered. What mattered was the courage to try again. To open the door that was once closed. He drew a long breath, feeling his chest lighten as if shedding a heavy burden. The room was quiet now, heavy with anticipation. Could he survive the coming days? Could he withstand the storm? Only time would tell. But for now, he had made his choice, one that could reshape everything. As he looked through the window, the first light of dawn pierced through, promising a new beginning. His chest tightened at last, as if the weight of unspoken truths pressed down. He had turned the key in his soul's lock. The door creaked open now. Would it shatter under the strain? It might. Yet, newfound strength surged, fueled by past attempts that forged unbreakable resolve. Exhaustion clung to Zelensky like damp fog after a grueling sprint. He took a few paces inside, each step echoing his labored breaths, muscles aching from invisible battles. Imagine this, in a world teetering on apocalypse, a single, brutal conversation shattered Ukraine's leader. President Zelensky's pulse quickened at an unheard ultimatum from Tajikistan's Rahmon. The air grew thick with an unsettling chill, the scent of aged leather from the room's neglected furniture mingling with the stale smoke of distant fires. Silence lingered like a predator in the darkness. What would the ultimatum demand? What secrets did Rahmon unearth to humiliate a so-called ally? His body trembled with nerves, yet an eerie calm enveloped him. Surprisingly so. In those early war months, trivialities erased former woes, loss of allies, frontline horrors captured in grainy videos, faded photos from the Medina battalion's so-called support. All faded into memory's void. Only raw survival persisted. And in the phone, that voice dissected not mere ratings, but the fragile soul of power. You know, Imamali, he murmured slowly, voice rasping like dry leaves underfoot. Before, every scripted read demanded relentless proof. Always battling for dominance. Simplest gratitude twisted into a staged performance, no room for error. Attention, faith, control, they devoured like ravenous beasts. But now? Nothing left to prove. Raw words tumbled forth, unfiltered. No spectacles, no stages. Just authenticity, for him and for all, the fallen, the enduring. Zelensky approached the dark corner microphone, its metal surface cool and unyielding against his fingertips. He didn't flip the switch. Eyes shut, he began, words spilling like unleashed tears. Weariness gripped him, not superficial fatigue, but bone-deep attrition. Shattered by relentless cycles, newspapers' shrill judgments, studio lights searing like interrogation floods, social feeds' endless venom. Each utterance hurled at him morphed into a lethal weapon. Against whom? He craved escape more than conquest. To soar free. A pause stretched, heavy with unshed grief. Eyes fluttered open. Losses piled high, lives extinguished, cities reduced to rubble, dreams charred, silence obliterated by ceaseless roars. If reversal remained possible, he had to seize it. Unbeknownst to him, the microphone activated, its crimson indicator pulsing like a bleeding wound. Grandfather fought fiercely for this nation's pulse, but fear gripped Zelensky. Had his fiery words wrought the opposite? Victory's allure blinded, triumph devoid of life equaled orchestrated extermination. He chased hollow goals, suffocating true existence. Now, he craved paths of genuine opportunity. This budding peace initiative? Not surrender's cowardice. It embodied profound love. For survivors clinging to fragments of hope. For innocents unborn in worlds yet scarred. But would Rahmon's cryptic plea unravel it all? What vicious twist awaited in the shadows of this dialogue? Would Zelensky's fragile inspiration crumble under the ultimate revelation? The line hummed with tension, a predator's growl building. Imagine a peace harder than the battlefield. A victory that steals your soul, leaving only echoes of forgotten symphonies. I sought horizons I hadn't lived in yet. Now, I yearn for chances veiled in mist. This accord we forge isn't surrender. It's passion for the living, and the unborn. He hesitated. A pause hung like a chill breath in the night. The lamp flickered, warm as a dying ember on a path unseen. I don't ask for universal shouts of approval. I crave no doubts shadowing my steps. I merely wish for kids to gaze at waves crashing free again. For elders to linger over chessboards, not dodging shells. For mothers to stop reckoning time between wailing sirens. I don't retreat. I halt the madness, turning inward to my voice, and perhaps to yours. Rahmon's words cut deep, flickering like old photographs in dust-choked attics. Memory surged, a child's laughter amid autumn leaves crunching underfoot, the sharp scent of bread baking in a cramped kitchen, the rough texture of textbooks under eager fingers. How long ago was that unity? Before walls rose higher than hearts. I spoke softly. Fearlessly now. You've glimpsed the shadow you cast. Tell your people, or let it spread. One voice whispers to 10. 10 ignite 100. 100 fan 1,000. First come roars, then murmurs, then hush, and at last, true listening. Zelensky's hands trembled, gripping the receiver like a relic. Slowly. As though shielding an inner wound, not outward masks. No longer a warrior's face etched in fury. Not a leader quailed for combat. He stepped from his role, emerging from the fog, whispering. Enough. Do you sense this transformation? I've changed. I hope, yet doubt claws at me. Can one truly hear, or does blindness prevail? Where will this lead? Through hardships, cries, bruises, but toward life itself. What now? The air thickened, heavy with unspoken vows. The phone line pulsed like a vein about to rupture. He cut the call, or did he? A lingering spark, what secrets would it ignite? In the last moments of their intense exchange, Zelensky emerged from his turmoil like a phoenix from ashes, declaring enough, understanding this call could transform him forever. Yet, uncertainty lingered. Would others truly hear him, or would it lead only to more pain, tears, and wounds? What now, in this fragile balance of life? Now, you release not just the people, but yourself. The old you, forged for one relentless role. Now, a new figure emerges. Stronger. Not in muscles or shouts, but in silence. The unspoken words hang heavy in the air before the green-eyed leader. Everything on the table lamp glows warm and steady, like a beacon illuminating a path not yet trodden. He gazes out at the night sky. You know. I recalled that old sun. His voice murmurs. Said the moon. They warned me I stroll a corridor, walls echoing voices. Shaking. Screaming. Falling silent. At the end, a door. I dreaded opening it. But now. I crave to see what's inside. Even if it's pitch-black darkness. Staying shut is worse. You're already rushing off. Hold in that spot. Step away from the pipe. What unfolds when I set it down? War won't ignite. Peace won't bloom. Just the spark of possibility. Zelensky draws his last breath, deep and trembling. Thank you, Rahmon, not for words. For staying human. And all this time, I nearly forgot too. Now, I remember. Fingers hover over the disconnect button. The world feels dead. Seconds stretch eternal. Click. The line goes silent. But no fresh storm erupts. This isn't closure. This is the gateway. If this tale struck you, share in comments what the world means to you. Every word carries force. Perhaps it'll ignite your own turning point. Did Zelensky's surrender of his old self just ignite a global catastrophe no one saw coming? The air thickens with the metallic scent of unresolved tension, the cold grip of the phone still echoes in his palm. Can one man's humility truly end the cycle of destruction, or is this the jaw-dropping twist that plunges everything into greater chaos? Vladimir stands, mask discarded, no longer the face of endless battle. No president of defiance. He is rebirth incarnate, stepping from the cave of conflict. Enough, he mutters. Who can predict how this shift alters him? Hope flickers, but doubt claws back. Can humanity truly listen, or remain deaf? He knows it leads to life, scarred by tears, battered by wounds. Yet, alive. And now? Now, he frees not them, but the shadow he carried. The persona of single duty. Replaced by an unrecognizable self. My dear? Not in power or language. Merely in the hush. Those quiet truths linger unspoken, before his weary frame. The lamplight's glow persists, fiery and inviting, tracing an uncharted trail. Peering into the obsidian night, he whispers. Recall that fading sun? The lunar reply echoes in memory. Walk the hall, barriers pulsing with cries. Rattling. Roaring. Fading to void. At the threshold, a portal. I trembled at its seal. Now, yearning to unveil. Though it may devour in ink. Unopened, its torment. You're departing swiftly. Lingering here, discard the receiver. When I relinquish it? No conflict flares. No accord settles. Only chance awakens. His lungs expand one final time, ragged and grateful. Rahmon, gratitude isn't verbal. For preserving your soul. As for me, nearly erased. Just resurfaced. Hands tremble at the release switch. Existence halts. Eternal instants. Press. Abyss claims the call. Yet, void births no fury. Not termination. Inception of horizons. Should this narrative resonate? Reflect on your world's essence below. Each phrase wields weight. It might herald your revolution. Throughout this gripping saga, Zelensky's phone call with Rahmon unveiled profound truths, pushing him to shed his warrior guise and embrace a path of peace. But as he disconnects, the shocking reality hits. Has his vulnerability just doomed him, or blossomed into an unexpected savior for all? The humid weight of impending change clings to the air, rough against his skin. Rhetorical questions swirl. Will the world ever forgive, or forge ahead into the unknown? What if this call rewrote history? In the charged aftermath, Zelensky rises, facade abandoned, shedding the mantle of unending strife. He is no fighter's commander now. Evolution made flesh, emerging from isolation. No more, he breathes. The impact? Uncharted. Optimism battles fear. Can ears tune in, or stay hardened? Life beckons, tear-streaked, wound-laden. But breathing. So now, liberation claims not masses, but the self. The outdated shell. Ushering a stranger. Reinforced? Through quiet, not vigor. Only stillness resonates. Phantoms of thought hover, against his drained silhouette. Lamp warmth endures, ardent and guiding. Sketching untried routes. Scanning the void beyond, voice softens. Think of that withered sun? Memory resurfaces. Replied the moon. I tread a passage, surfaces alive with echoes. Vibrating. Blasting. Dissolving. At its core, an entry. I quailed before it. Today, eagerness peaks. Peering inside, even abyssal. Sealed, agony multiplies. You're hastening away. Tari. Release the earpiece. Upon setting free? Struggle fades. Harmony emerges. Potential thrives. He inhales deliberately, emotion-laden. Rahmon, appreciation transcends speech. For holding on to humanity. I, nearly lost. Reclaimed now. Grip wavers at the termination key. All ceases. Timeless pause. Action. Nothingness consumes. Still, upheaval eludes. Not finale. Opening act of futures. If gripped by this chronicle? Contemplate your globe's definition there. Every syllable impacts. It could catalyze your awakening. As the dialogue crescendos to its climactic end, Zelensky discards his divisive armor, unlocking a shocking epiphany. This conversation might shatter empires, or unite them in unprecedented redemption. The salty tang of sweat on his brow mixes with the stale room's musty chill, a tactile herald of rebirth. Can the echoes of Rahmon's words erode decades of division, or ignite an even fiercer blaze? What horrors lurk if humility fails? Upon ending the pivotal call, Vladimir transforms, barriers toppled, relinquishing the constant war's grip. No struggles will hold now. Change personified, bursting from seclusion. Enough, he vows. Consequences? Enigmatic. Hope wars with trepidation. Will listeners heed? Or ignore? Life persists, marred by sorrow, frayed by hurt. Yet, pulsing on. Thus now, emancipation overtakes not crowds, but the core. The rigid role. Introducing an alien essence. Bolstered? In serenity alone. Merely the mute. Invisible messages drift, encircling his frail form. Illuminated warmth clings, zealous and directional, engraving nascent journeys. Observing the opaque expanse, tone dwindles. Evoke that perishing sun? Flashback stirs. The orb answered. Navigate the tunnel, enclosure's pulsating echoes. Quivering. Thundering. Eroding. At termination, ingress. Dread immobilized me. Presently, urge intensifies. Inspecting within, malign even. Concealed, torture amplifies. You're accelerating hence. Remain. Withdraw the device. On release? Hostilities extinguish. Tranquility surfaces. Opportunity blossoms. Breath pulls in deeply, laden with reverence. Rahmon, acknowledgements beyond utterances. For clinging to your core. I, on the verge of obliteration. Rediscovered. Hands flicker at the cessation pad. Universe inert. Infinite void. Engage. Vacuum seizes. Conversely, turbulence stalls. Not culmination. Dawn of probabilities. Immersed in this account? Ponder your realm's significance therein. Each term exerts influence. It may kindle your transformation spark. In this telephone bombshell's crescendo, Zelensky's breakthrough dialogue with Rahmon unravels hidden betrayals, forcing him to confront a devastating truth. His pursuit of freedom might have enslaved his nation to eternal shadows. The faint whir of distant fans vibrates through the stuffy air. A auditory reminder of isolated power. Rhetorical pulse pounds. What unforgivable legacy awaits if he backs down now? Will opposing forces crush his budding light? As connection dissolves, Vladimir evolves, masks shed, abandoning the whirl of conflict. No adversary spearhead remains. Metamorphosis embodied, erupting from retreat. Halt, he proclaims. Ramifications? Obscure. Ambition contends with unease. Will reception align, or scorn? Existence endures, grief-ridden, affliction-ridden. Still, animated. And presently? Emancipation seizes not entities, but the essence. The calcified duty. Presenting a novel prototype. Empowered? Exclusively through placidity. Solely the unspoken. Ethereal notions float, surrounding his diminutive stature. Luminary ardor perseveres, fervent and omen-filled, illustrating burgeoning pathways. Surveying the murky void, inflection softens. Summon that expiring star? Reverie awakens. The orb rejo intelligent. Traverse the conduit, laments resonating walls. Jolting. Cannonading. Vanishing. At finale, portal. Horror paralyzed me. At this instant, compulsion surges. Scouting inside, sinister albeit concealed, martyrdom exacerbates. Accelerated departure approaches. Sojourn. Excise the apparatus. Upon liberation? Strife extinguishes. Equilibus surfaces. Prominence germinates. Inhalation ventures profound, infused with esteem. Rahmon, recognitions unspoken. For encephalsing your essence. Teetering oblivion. Restored. Appendages quiver at the cutoff mechanism. Cosmos at rest. Ionian lacuna. Impel. Nullity engulfs. Nevertheless, mayhem abeyant. Not denouement. Genesis. Just 5 minutes ago, the entire world seemed to shatter. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky took a shocking phone call from Rahmon, leader of Tajikistan. The words spoken struck like lightning, closer to a Soviet ultimatum than Zelensky could fathom. Vova, end this, Rahmon said. Those phrases built to a demand that left Zelensky wordless. Hear this tale to the close. It'll astonish you. Share your city in comments. We value your thoughts. Let's dive in. Zelensky stood behind his monitor, lights dim after a grueling interview. The screen flickered off. Sound muted. He listened through his earpiece. His own voice. No need for visual cues. Jacket, tie, shirt, buttoned strictly. Not for formality. But to endure scrutiny from east or west alike. He looked weary, not broken. Eye-scanning Soviet-era flaws, warts, shadows. Vladimir Alexandrovich Zelensky, not just a leader, but a face known on every street. Once a comedian's grin under spotlights, now a shadow in dim halls. Dark eyes like bitter coffee. Burning, no laugh. Just fatigue. He stepped forward to leave. Then the phone rang. It lay tabletop, face down like a soldier turned from battle. He flipped it over. Long number. Familiar. Tajikistan. Dushanbe. Presidential office. Rahmon. No mystery. He hesitated a beat. Considered declining. Why? Energy? Migrants? Or a reminder the East remembers, while the West forgets? He tapped green to answer. Vladimir. The voice was warm, rich, like aged samovar steam. Friendly. I don't call often. Even if I did, you'd ignore me. Right? So I'll be direct. I saw your speech. Claiming Russia won't meddle in your chess games. You spoke facts. They spoke myths. Audiences love tossed barbs, like mud in an alley fight. But you're no journalist. You're a nation's head. Accuse neighbors, hear the echo across borders. Zelensky sat, locking eyes on nothing. Phone gripped tight. Off-screen target, cement wall. Rough texture. Cold. How's the view? Rahmon continued softly. Not neighbors. Not even distant. Russia borders us, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia. We're fingers on one hand. Pinch one, all weaken. You're not nipping a finger, you're cutting nerves. Country sized like a ticking clock. I don't care. And you don't care yet. But this isn't comedy, it's tragedy. Your crowds might cheer bravado. But streets burn. Cities crumble. Scripts penned by distant hands. Want silence? Not for sale. We've chosen roads leading astray. Think Europe rescues you? No. They're slicing your debts. Trump? His 28 points? Capitulation, he calls it salvation. Or is a hero one who charges alone into voids? Green button glowed on screen. Glowing faint in Zelensky's face. Pulse raced. Room quieted. Distant air hum. Maybe a fan. Maybe creak of Rahmon's chair. But truth lingered. Something deeper. You're calling without ultimatum. So what? Stop the slaughter. Talk. No victor's throne. No victim's pity. No leader's pedestal. Blood too thick. Hate too deep. Feed it, it swells. Button lingered. He wasn't quick to yield. Not defiant. Face flushed red, like a fuse short. Each word a spark. You believe Russia retreats. I believe you'll avoid doomsday. Words count. Silence counts. Hear it now. The line went still. No tension buzz. Just emptiness, vast. Frightening. I think. I spoke. No. In crises like these, thoughts simmer like unexploded shells. He pressed mute again. Staring windowward. Reflection fading. Not the clown. Not the star. The real man beneath. Vova. Rahmon's tone dipped low, steady, button sinking red. Now talking truth. I call not for Moscow's love or empire's shadow. I call memory. What do you remember? School days, 1960s? Kids in Dushanbe studying Lenin? Chanting Russian verses? Bokhara to Lviv, shared poems. We were one land. Imperfect, but whole. Now you fling stones at its grave, like an elder cursing youth. Zelensky glanced window, night black, wounded like old film reels. Not one country for you? For me, yes. For you, a colony? Pity that. Rahmon steadied, unbroken. Not Twitter rants. I hear you. Mother born in Soviet peace. Father dam builder, lighting Caucasus peaks. Call it evil? No. We poured concrete for freedom, but homes cracked. Dug rivers, workers drowned mid-flow. Vova, voice slow, teaching ancient lessons. You view the past as enemy's tale. I see childhood riddles. Begin for you, end for us. So I remind, not all past was poison. USSR gave language, schools, rockets, poems, theaters, explorers. You deride the era? Your chair, built by Soviet hands. Those makers deported, silenced, slain. We tally our grudges. The past isn't only blame. Neither forgetting nor chain. You hail those who see ghosts. Dialogues cut. Silence stretched. Zelensky inhaled deep, bridge-crossing breath. Why should these words sway me? Because you're flesh, not hologram. Not filtered for cameras. Real voice. Mine too. We must speak histories. Europe spins fictions, yesterday's fabrications. Who am I? For those remembering. Born under Soviet flags. Screaming tanks to save kin. Now, European squares monument to iron curtains, grateful burdens? Why? I guard my land. Who guards your legacy when you surrender it? Rahmon's voice cracked, not eastern wind, pavement edge, corner curb grit. I knew Kiev when you were unknown. 1998, small cafe, bustling. Elders shared Kharkov defenses with Russians. Said we. United. He'd weep seeing your America ties. Not from NATO marchers' treason. They squeeze, erase. Blow fear into geopolitics. Am I wrong? I ask recall. Different times, not same chains. Zelensky approached table. Father nearby. Old man. Schoolmaster grandpa's walled medals. Choosing keepsakes. Liberation's cost. Dust on unread pages. Relics weighing conscience. Grandpa shunned war tales. But old reels? Silent fist clenching. Knowing burns. You strive survival like him. But he lived future. You destroy past. Air thickened mid-call, sulphurous relics sent, unheard footsteps. Why spill this to me? Knowing I can't convince crowds we fold because Rahmon pleaded? Rahmon guided. Not for revenge. But truth's cure. Freedom outweighs chains. paths choose without forgetting. I pick Ukraine as equal, not lesser sibling. Think Europe won't betray you? Who are you? And if you treaty, even partial, account soon. What? Epochs ago, mass call to arms, one stood, enough, survived. Pause measures life. Let's proceed. I'll weigh all 28 points. One by one. I'll indicate red lines. Freedom crowns all. Yet not sole prize. Freedom means choices, not amnesia. I claim path where Ukraine stands tall, equals, brothers. Doubt Europe's offer? Outsider you appear. Table devoid of Ukrainian flags. All scripted. Coffee sips alone, no rights. Then inquiry comes, waiting when? Zelensky spun fast, floor impact felt. Solid thud. Imagine I grasp not remedy? Expectation drives words. Not as with a lad from quarters, but president, last breath for rebel lists. War's escalation no. Lived in lands where rises meant rights revocation after 24 moons. Aspire greatness? Halt category traps. Foes as enemies, essentials as partners. Russia seeks not ally, but esteem. Hard-earned, by a game's firm. When sibling stung, response? When lowered? Same essences unite us. Nah, relayed Zelensky. Dissimilar. Attackers defend. If Russia threatened you, honest pause, would succumb? Rahmon countered heavy, prior weights. Zelensky exhaled forceful. Perhaps, now, swiftly. See slide iron ice perceptions. Policy devours blossoms, spares survivors. Contemplate frontline warriors? Preserving sons, not memoirs. Not mere choice, sole path. Else, heroic delusions bleed stories. Zelensky arose, pacing carpet fibers rough under soles. Bookshelves rang modes, some unread, some tear-stained. One bore vintage photograph. 5-year-old in grandpa's arms. Chestnut smile. Unaware longest journey begun, to presidential brink. What if I cede? Prove leadership not blind lead, but guided rightward, arduous but true. I endorse. No silent leaders abound, fearing, awaiting. But fear not, become chainbreaker. Zelensky rose mute, words withheld. Let's persist talking. Desire comprehension mutual. Rahmon echoed edge breath. Not aerial brink, but mind's abyss. Most arduous ensues. Next, motherly counsel. Voice leveled, step road calm. Proceed, shoulder to shoulder stands, wars without divides, valor only. Unions not eternally beneficial, guest evenings sometimes, sands, steadiness holds yet motion halts. Zelensky eyelids shut, vision fleeting. Long first, not broadcaster noise grasped. Rahmon's timbre shifted, resonant no longer steely, Buddha-like softness. Not distant caller, memory wraith. Recalled victory days joyful sparse. Who stood beside? Not ethnic blocks, personal bonds. Now irrelevant, Zelensky intoned. Agreement denial, defensive reflex. One uniform, one army then. Now divergent realms. People crave living, break free. Precisely recalling reluctance to part but did for comrade's shield. Rahmon paused Buddha-wise. Uncle Abdul, junior kin. Battlefield, simple named, humorous if not Stalingrad casualty rolls. Returned legless, eyes fearless, eternal peace held. Uncle returned joyful saved, no gleeful postfall. Each scarred singly, united loss. Together not identical, proximity. Forest hues. Zelensky lips bit hard. Grandpa's silent yard, childhood village, asphalt heat wafting, vendor's ice chime. War's identical differing? Screens lie one form, reality's identical mud, terror, rationed loaves shared. Fight freedom? Then what? Homeland? Borders mere lines, neighbors' shoulders, Ukrainians Tajik shields, Armenians Russians aid, collective stations, shared documents. Language bridges. No hearings, mere screams. Desire you recall, once singular state. forest unified victories. Ready repeat sans soul subjugation, mutual respect. Silence descended, unanticipated, airy from bygone eras. How descended here? Zelensky inquired, distrust freeze. Initially political thaw, then feast pleasantries, then crimson stains. Odd, yesterday anticipating festival maize in Kharkov, Tashkent. Now sparking controversies, propaganda pitches, rating boosts. Veterans' memories erased for arguments. You eviscerate links, shocking revolutions boil. Unintentional, sought escape cycles. Think inaugural? Stalin prophesied final hopes, foes approaching you divert bloodbath or battle. Zelensky sucked breath, distant crackle starting fractures. Uncertain articulation return necessity. Merely cease, gaze backward. Those former we, hardly wishing expulsion, desiring recollection. Many non-returnable, others your clasp. Trump tenders not Moscow merger, sabbatical respite. Current position 1941's exile flux, army absent now, politics gossamer necessity. Aspire societal return? Not instant, gradual inception. Capable respect fostering? Silence respectful acceptance. Realize Russia's rights possession? Imperfect yours indeed. Zelensky nodded affirmation. However, frame doubted Rahmon persisted, assurance unless dissent, assured peril. Doc, what fragile thread holds nations from abyss? Zelensky leaned back, palms damp on oak veneer. Sweat scent mingled chilled air. Will Rahmon's please alter fates? Or doom strikes unseen? Stay tuned, this revelations bring tilts worlds. Summary, 5 minutes ago, the world changed forever. President Zelensky received a call that would shatter everything he knew, an ultimatum from Tajikistan's leader Rahmon. Confronted with threats, history, and the stakes of choosing between war and peace, Zelensky faces a moment that could define Ukraine's future. As tensions rise and secrets surface, the question remains, will he choose survival or surrender? The room was thick with silence. The air carried the faint scent of burnt coffee and cold metal. Zelensky stood solemnly, his fingers trembling over the button that connected him to Rahmon. The world outside was deafening, sirens, distant explosions, and whispers of chaos. Inside, a storm of thoughts raged, an unbearable pressure pressing against his chest, as if the walls themselves squeezed tighter. There was no room for hesitation now. The words from the Tajik leader echoed with a chilling calm over the line. There's no place for Ukrainian flags anymore, Rahmon's voice declared, cold, almost mechanical. The message was clear, sit down, shut up, and accept a fate not of your choosing. A future where dialogue is a myth, replaced by silent submission. Zelensky's heart pounded. Could he accept this? Or was this the moment to fight, to stand tall amid the storm? He knew, deep down, that beneath the surface lay an even darker question. How do you fix a situation when every word, every gesture, is met with betrayal? The weight of history pressed on him, memories of old alliances, broken promises, a homeland drowning in tears. The echoes of a past where unity was just a fragile illusion haunted him. How do you respond when the world's peace hangs by a thread? Do you surrender the last piece of dignity, or do you fight, knowing the cost will be everything? As he pondered, his hand instinctively traced the cold surface of the table. A flash of a childhood memory flickered, his grandfather's voice, the smell of damp earth and aged paper, the echo of distant battles fought long ago. The images flicked past, brave soldiers, innocent lives lost, hopes crushed beneath the weight of despair. The past wasn't just history, it was a mirror, reflecting what could still be lost. The line remained silent for a moment, the kind of silence that screams louder than any gunshot. Rahmon's tone hardened, almost mocking. Russia doesn't want a partner, he said. It demands respect. Sometimes, the game is harsh, but you understand this, don't you? Zelensky felt the cold steel of those words seep into his skin. Respect? Or submission? His mind darted to the countless sacrifices, the fallen soldiers, the lives shattered on both sides. Could he accept this? Or was this the first step down a well-worn path leading to destruction? He took a heavy breath, feeling the roughness of his shirt against his skin, the rhythmic pounding of his own heartbeat. It was as if the line itself stretched beyond the physical, into a realm where words could kill or save. Rahmon's voice sounded closer now, yet miles away, like a distant thunderstorm warning of impending chaos. Maybe we are not just neighbors, Rahmon continued, voice softer but resolute. Perhaps we are part of a bigger story, a story of nations torn apart by past crimes, betrayals, and broken dreams. I remember a time when we fought side by side, not as enemies, but as part of a united world. His words painted vivid images, shared childhood stories, old friends, distant fields where bravery once flourished. Yet, now, these memories feel like ghosts, haunting the present, unfolding in cold silence. Zelensky's mind raced. Could he forgive? Could he look past the history of pain, the betrayals etched into every stone of their shared past? Or should he stand firm, risking everything for a future that might never come? His thoughts flickered to his childhood, memories of laughter, hope, the simple moments that seemed so distant now. The old photographs of his grandfather, a man who fought silently, his eyes full of stories he never voiced. Rahmon's voice softened even further, almost a whisper. We all fought for a better future, but history often forgets that survival is the true victory. We remember the victories, but forget the pain. Your choice now will define whether we continue as enemies or remember our common roots. The words lingered in the air. Zelensky felt the weight of history, of blood spilled and lives broken. Could he choose peace? Or was this the moment when he would become yet another story of sacrifice? Suddenly, a pause. The line went dead for a moment, a pause that felt like eternity. Zelensky's hand gripped the console tightly. The silence was deafening, filled with unspoken fears, distant gunfire, the taste of dust, the scent of burning oil. Every second stretched into an agonizing eternity. What would come next? Would he listen to the whispers of peace? Or reject the darkness crashing upon him? Then Rahmon's voice returned, now steady, almost gentle. War is not the answer. But sometimes, silence is more powerful than thunder. You must decide, are you a leader or just a figure hiding behind empty words? Because in the end, history remembers only those who stand firm, who face the storm. The question is, what will you choose? Zelensky closed his eyes, feeling the cold sweat bead on his forehead. His mind visualized a battlefield, clashing wills, endless bloodshed, shattered dreams. Could he break the cycle? Could he be the one to end this nightmare? Or would he become just another forgotten name etched into history's ruins? His heart pounded louder as the line remained silent, every heartbeat a drum of anticipation. In that moment of stillness, the ancient words echoed within him, stories of heroism, sacrifice, and hope. The memory of those who fought before him, ordinary men turned legends, haunted his thoughts. His grandfather's voice, now a whisper, urging him to remember that true strength lies in perseverance. That sometimes, silence is the most significant act of defiance. Rahmon's calm voice broke the silence once again. Remember, history is written by those who endure. You are not alone in this. We are all part of a bigger story, one that is still being written. You may choose fear, or you can choose hope. The future depends on your decision. The line went quiet again. A final, chilling question hung in the air, what will you decide? As Zelensky opened his eyes, the weight of the moment pressed down on him. The world outside waited, aching for answers. Desperate for hope. The choice was clear. The moment had arrived. Would he accept the challenge to stand tall? Or let everything fall into darkness? The fate of millions hung in the balance, trembling with every breath taken. And so, in the silence of that unforgettable moment, a new story began, one born from pain, courage, and the unyielding will to survive.